across the school. After 3 years of studying, the students were told they had mastered the basics of the profession system. At the center of the courtyard was a stone platform with a glowing magic circle. This was where everything would be decided. The principal of Shihai First Academy, Lu Yun, stood before the entire student body. He announced that today was the day their futures would be chosen. He told them they all had the chance to become pillars of humanity, just like the legendary hero Su Tianxing, a level 80 holy mage. In the crowd, a student named Lin Moyu watched the glowing circle. He had been reborn into this world, and after waiting for years, he was finally ready to get his profession. This new world operated just like a RPG. Dungeons and secret areas were scattered everywhere, and monsters roamed the wild. The only way to survive was to get stronger. By killing monsters and clearing dungeons, people could gain experience, level up, and enhance their skills. Powerful people carved out a safe society for humanity. Professions were split into combat and support roles, with different levels of rarity. The rarer your class, the more powerful you could become. Lin Moyu knew that legendary professions were incredibly rare. Down below, the principal raised his hands and activated the transmutation circle. The ceremony was finally beginning. In the crowd, Lin Moyu's classmate, Gao Yang, came up to him. He cheerfully asked Moyu what profession he was hoping to get. Gao Yang didn't wait for an answer, saying he wanted to be a knight so he could protect the girls. But other students started talking behind Moyu's back, calling him an idiot and saying he was arrogant just because he got good grades. Gao Yang told them to stop. He explained that Lin Moyu wasn't arrogant. He just didn't like to talk much. Up on the stage, the principal greeted a special guest, Master Zhang. Lin Moyu's eyes widened when he saw the man's title. A level 58 transformation master was an extremely rare and powerful support profession. The announcer grabbed the microphone and told the students to enter the circle when their name was called. The first one up was a student named Shu Da. Shu Da stepped into the glowing circle. A moment later, the system announced his new profession, farmer, a livelihood class. He was completely crushed. This was not the future he had hoped for, and the crowd started murmuring. Some said being a farmer wasn't so bad for a livelihood class. Another student remembered that Shu Da's father was a chef, and it seemed he had inherited a similar non-combat profession. The principal and Master Zhang watched from the side. They agreed that this year's students seemed pretty average. So far, not a single rare profession had appeared. The principal sighed, admitting it had been years since the academy produced a student with a rare profession. The whole city of Shihai only saw 1 or 2 a year, so his hopes weren't high. The announcer called the next name, Jia Shui. As she walked forward, she glanced toward Lin Moyu, determined to prove she was the real genius of their academy. She remembered how everyone called them the 2 geniuses, but he was always ranked higher. Today, she wasn't going to lose. As she stepped into the circle, the masters immediately noticed something different about her. Master Zhang pointed out her potential, and another expert, Master Chen, added that her mental strength was twice that of an ordinary person. She was destined to be a mage, maybe even something more. The transmutation circle flared to life around her. Suddenly, a massive vision of light and power exploded from the circle. Everyone knew what that meant. A rare profession had appeared. The system confirmed it. She had become an elemental mage, a rare combat profession. The crowd was stunned. The crowd was buzzing. Everyone was impressed that Xia Shui had gotten a rare combat class. The masters praised her for her talent, and she bowed respectfully to thank them. Her friends rushed over, telling her how amazing she was. One of them said that with a rare profession like this, she'd finally be able to surpass that annoying guy, Lin Moyu. Xia Shui watched him with a determined look. Just then, the announcer called out the next name, Lin Moyu. He calmly walked towards the circle, hands in his pockets. He didn't look nervous at all. The masters watched him approach. One asked Master Zhang what he thought of the boy. Master Zhang admitted that while Lin Moyu was the top student, it didn't mean he'd get a good profession. Other than his calm look, he seemed pretty ordinary. Still, the master couldn't help but wonder what would happen if Lin Moyu also managed to get a rare profession. He stepped into the circle, and the energy around him immediately began to swirl wildly. Then, something impossible happened. The sky turned black, filled with storm clouds and lightning. The wind started howling, and everyone panicked, wondering what was going on. This was way more than just a profession change. The masters looked on, completely stunned. One of them realized it was a vision tied to the profession change. A vision this huge could only mean one thing. Another rare class was about to be born. Jia Shui watched, her confidence shaken. The vision for her own profession was nothing compared to this. She refused to believe she could lose to him. Suddenly, one of the students pointed up at the sky. He yelled that there was something moving inside the dark clouds. Inside the storm, a figure with glowing blue eyes looked out. It was a skeleton warrior. The students started screaming in panic. The clouds weren't just clouds. They were filled with the undead. It wasn't just a few of them. It was a whole army, stretching as far as anyone could see. Xia Shui knew it was just a vision, but it didn't matter. She admitted to herself that she stood no chance against an army like that. And in the middle of all the chaos, Lin Moyu just stood there. A strange green energy, full of ghostly skulls, swirled around him. The system confirmed it. His combat class was Necromancer, a unique, hidden profession. He looked at the strange energy in his hand, finally understanding what it was. The weight of it hit him all at once. This meant he was the only Necromancer in the entire world. As long as he was alive, there would never be another one. His profession wasn't just rare. It was even more special than the legendary ones. The other students were in an uproar. Some were jealous, wondering how he got so lucky. Others tried to convince themselves that hidden professions weren't always powerful. But after the vision they had just seen, they knew this was different. While the others debated, Lin Moyu stood quietly, lost in thought. That's when one of the masters called out, telling him to wait a moment. Lin Moyu turned and bowed his head. He politely asked the senior what he needed. The master admitted he'd never seen a profession like this before and asked him to show off his skills. A system window appeared, showing his stats. He was a level 1. With his intelligence already at 15, he had 2 skills, Summon Skeleton Warrior and Soul Blaze. Lin Moyu realized his spiritual power felt different from a normal mage's. Without wasting a moment, he activated his skill to summon a Skeleton Warrior right in front of the master. The Skeleton Warrior materialized, and a status window showed its stats. All its attributes were at 15, which was insane for a level 1 summon. The other students finally understood. The dark cloud they saw earlier wasn't just for show. Lin Moyu had actually pulled this thing out of it. Without any warning, the master attacked. He fired 2 beams of energy straight at the skeleton. The warrior reacted instantly, crossing its blades to block the strike. A system message popped up for Lin Moyu. It warned him that his skeleton had been attacked and asked if he wanted to counter. If he didn't decide in 5 seconds, the skeleton would attack on its own. The master held up a hand, telling him to keep the summon still. He was impressed. The skeleton was incredibly vigilant. The master was thinking hard. He was a level 58 professional, yet this level 1 summon felt like a real threat. He could tell its attributes were somehow stronger than his own. He looked at Lin Moyu and thanked him, saying that with a good master, this profession could make a real difference in the future. While the other students kept a safe distance, one guy with blonde hair walked right up to Lin Moyu. He looked at the skeleton with a sparkle in his eye and asked if he could touch it. The blonde student asked if the skeleton was really that powerful. Lin Moyu told him it was probably stronger than him, but his friend just laughed, saying it looked like a pile of rags. Just then, an instructor called out for Gao Yang, since it was his turn. Lin Moyu decided to recall his summon for now. That's when he understood. A system window showed he had a summoning space with 1 skeleton inside. This meant he could store his summons without constantly using his spiritual energy. The space would get bigger as he leveled up, and that became his new goal. Lin Moyu was just getting started as a necromancer, but he could already see the future, a day when he'd be strong enough to kill a dragon in seconds. Gao Yang was ecstatic. He'd become a sword and shield knight, an advanced profession. He promised Lin Moyu that he'd fight in front of him from now on. Lin Moyu just reminded him that he'd said the exact opposite earlier. An instructor stood before the students and announced that the profession transfer was officially over. He told them to work hard because the novice dungeons would be opening the next day. As the students discussed the dungeons, a girl walked right up to Lin Moyu. She challenged him to a competition to see who would get better results in the upcoming exam. He just looked at her and said, okay. She took his calm acceptance as a deal. She declared that even though she lost to him today, she wouldn't be defeated again. Later, Lin Moyu was back home. He thought about his sister. With his new rare profession, he was sure he could get into a top academy and be with his family again. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Lin Moyu opened it and was surprised to see the principal standing there. The principal held out a large bag, telling him he'd brought some supplies. The principal remembered Lin Moyu's older sister, Lin Mohan. A year ago, she was accepted into a top academy. Before she left, he promised her he would take good care of her younger brother. He was here to keep that promise. Lin Moyu took the bag and thanked him. The principal just told him to get a good night's rest because the dungeon test was the next day. Later that night, a glowing green window suddenly appeared right in front of him. The system was loading, and he had no idea why. The system announced it had awakened because of his necromancer profession. It was giving him a unique, god-level talent. He also got a new passive skill, damage transfer. It meant any damage he took would go to his summons instead. He realized this power was completely godlike. He immediately tried it out, summoning a skeleton warrior. A window popped up showing its stats. Its strength, agility, and physique were all at 75. He realized the skeleton's attributes were 5 times higher than they should be. With this power and the damage transfer skill, he would be almost invincible against anyone at the same level. This was how he was going to change his fate. The next day, all the students gathered at the entrance to the novice dungeon. A blonde-haired student walked up to Lin Moyu and asked if he wanted to team up. The student got angry, thinking Lin Moyu was looking down on him. He demanded an explanation, but Lin Moyu just calmly told him that teaming up would make things slow. Going solo was the fastest way to level up. A girl named Xia Shui stepped in. She told the others that Lin Moyu was right. Experience is split when you're in a team. She explained that the best strategy was to go solo until level 10 and only team up after that. An instructor then addressed the group. He told them that most combat professions would need to bring support into the dungeon. He warned them not to get too used to going solo because they'd learn soon enough how important support was. He explained that Xia Shui was an elemental mage aiming for a top academy, so she needed to level up as fast as possible. As for Lin Moyu, the instructor admitted that they didn't really understand his abilities. He suggested that the support students could ask if he was willing to team up, but the other students were terrified of his undead summons. A moment later, Lin Moyu spoke up. He told the principal that he was also aiming for Xia Jing Academy, and that's why he had to go solo. The principal, whose name was Li, looked serious. He asked if Lin Moyu knew how hard it was to get into that academy. He explained that you had to be at least level 12 and level 15 to be safe. He even reminded him that his sister, Lin Mohan, got in at level 16. He told him it wasn't easy to reach level 12 in just a week, let alone 15. The monsters in the novice dungeon only went up went up to level 8, making it impossible to level up that high. On top of that, there were other secret requirements that wouldn't be revealed until the final trial. Lin Moyu just looked at him and said he was confident. The principal's expression softened. He figured that with a hidden profession, the kid might actually have a chance. That's when Xia Shui stepped forward, her body glowing with energy. She challenged him to a competition to see who could level up faster. Taking his silence as an agreement, she turned and walked away. Lin Moyu just sighed, thinking she was way too competitive. With that settled, he walked into the novice dungeon alone. He remembered it cost 10 spirit to summon a skeleton. After meditating all night, his spirit had recovered to 40, so he had enough to summon a few more. He raised his hand and gave the command. His skeletons charged forward to find and destroy any monsters in their path. His plan was simple. The more monsters he killed, the faster he'd level up. The skeletons were incredibly effective, and in just a few minutes, his experience had already jumped by 10%. It only took half an hour for him to level up. The system showed his new stats. His strength and agility were now 20, and his spirit was 40. He could now summon up to 6 skeletons. He immediately summoned a new level 2 skeleton. Its stats were way higher now, with strength, agility, and physique, all at 125. With 8 warriors now available, his leveling speed was about to get even crazier. This was just the beginning. His army of the dead swept through the dungeon. System notifications popped up one after another, confirming kills on cats, dogs, and rats. The experience just kept pouring in. He discovered an amazing new function. His skeletons were automatically creating a map as they explored. That's when he noticed a monster they had missed hiding in the dark. This was the perfect chance to try out his new active skill. He unleashed Soul Blaze. The skill had a 5 times damage boost, and the level 2 creature was turned to ash in seconds. The system confirmed the kill, and he gained 20 experience points. He realized his spiritual attacks were just as strong as physical or magical ones. With the power of his hidden profession, even without the talent boost, his skills were stronger than any legendary class. That single kill was enough to level him up again. He didn't waste a moment. With his new power, he summoned more skeleton warriors to continue the hunt. The results were immediate. Notifications flooded in as his skeletons tore through rats, wolves, and leopards. The experience just kept rolling in. In just 2 hours, he had already reached level 4. He figured if he kept this up, he'd be level 8 in no time. Meanwhile, 2 men were having a conversation. One of them was Jia Dongyang, Xia Shui's father. The other man, Mentor Lu, praised Xia Shui for being hardworking and smart. Her father agreed, proud that she had become a rare elemental mage. He just felt bad that he was too busy to see her career change. Her father said he couldn't miss her first dungeon run too. They knew she was competitive and would need to level up fast to get into Xiajing Academy. The conversation then turned to Lin Moyu. With his hidden profession, they figured his level couldn't be far behind. Mentor Lu suggested they wait 12 hours to see how much the students had leveled up. Jia Dongyang agreed, mentioning that Lin Moyu's profession was a necromancer, something he'd never heard of. He also brought up that Lin Moyu's sister was friends with his daughter, Xia Shui, and that they should look out for each other at the academy. Meanwhile, Lin Moyu was deep in the dungeon. His skeleton army was clearing out every monster within a 500-meter radius. Another level 7 brown bear fell, and the experience just kept coming. For almost 7 hours straight, his skeletons hunted everything in sight. He was starting to get bored, wondering where the stronger monsters were. He couldn't help but wonder how the other students were doing. As he walked through the woods, a whip-like vine suddenly shot out from the trees, aimed right at him. The attack hit him dead on, but he didn't feel a thing. His passive skill, damage transfer, instantly sent all the force to his summons instead. He looked up and saw the attacker, a massive, Level 8 bullwhip tree. Finally, a real challenge. He decided to see how much damage his skeletons could take. His skeleton warrior charged in and struck the tree, but he was surprised when the monster didn't go down in one hit. It took 4 slashes to finally bring it down. He realized that fighting level 8 monsters would slow down his leveling speed. Still, the 160 experience points were a nice reward. He looked out and saw not just one monster, but hundreds of bullwhip trees. A small smile appeared on his face. This wasn't a dangerous place. It was a sanctuary made just for him. His skeletons made quick work of the monsters, and the experience points poured in. Outside the dungeon, a portal suddenly opened. The instructors watching over the tests were on high alert, worried that something had gone wrong. Lin Moyu stepped out of the portal. An instructor immediately asked him why he was out so early. He just looked at him and said he'd killed them all. A status window confirmed it. Lin Moyu was already level 7. Mentor Lu couldn't believe his eyes. He exclaimed that reaching that level in just 10 hours was impossible, especially with the number of monsters in there. He demanded to know how a necromancer could possess such power. Mentor Lu told Lin Moyu he could rest until the other students were finished. The other instructors saw him sitting alone and started talking. They couldn't figure out why a student would be out so early or where his teammates were. Mentor Lu explained the situation to the others. He told them Lin Moyu had cleared the entire novice dungeon and slaughtered every level 8 monster inside. The 2 instructors were completely stunned. They tried to make sense of what they'd heard. One of them admitted he'd never seen any profession, not even a legendary one, with that kind of leveling speed. They all realized that if this was the true power of a necromancer. It was a game changer. Mentor Lu laughed and told the principal this wasn't the first time Lin Moyu had come out on top. He revealed that for the past 2 years, Lin Moyu's results had always been better than his daughter's. The principal was shocked. He said his daughter had never told him that. Lin Moyu sat alone, thinking about his new power. He could summon 24 skeletons now, but his summoning space had already grown to hold 70. He knew it would take a long time to reach his full potential. Just then, another student stepped out of the portal. Her name was Xia Shui, an elemental mage, and she was ready for a rematch. But when she looked around, Lin Moyu was nowhere to be seen. A status window popped up, showing her Lin Moyu's level. Her eyes went wide. Level 7. It was impossible. She found her father waiting for her and immediately asked how Lin Moyu could be level 7. Her dad just sighed, reminding her that Lin Moyu had been outperforming her for years. He offered to help her out. She refused, saying this was her fight. That's when her dad told her the whole story. Lin Moyu didn't just level up. He cleared the entire dungeon and killed every single level 8 monster by himself. She was speechless. She'd just reached that area and hadn't seen a thing. Meanwhile, another student had found Lin Moyu. He was completely in awe of his level and begged to be taken along next time, even calling him Boss Lin. Lin Moyu just told him he'd see what he could do. The student was thrilled and promised to wait for him at the school entrance the next day. But when the time came, Lin Moyu was a no-show. The student asked Mentor Lu where he was, and the instructor told him Lin Moyu had already left for another area. The student completely lost it, screaming that Lin Moyu had tricked him and that he wanted a fight. Mentor Lu just calmly told him to give up. He wouldn't stand a chance anyway. Lin Moyu arrived at the Shenxia Empire Exchange. A system window popped up, confirming his identity and granting him access. He was ready to find a mission. He scrolled through the missions. One caught his eye. Raid a level 10 domain for a huge gold reward. But there was a catch. The main item only dropped on nightmare difficulty or higher. He knew it wouldn't be easy. The difference between difficulties was huge. Normal was for regular adventurers. Nightmare required a strong, organized team. Hell difficulty was for absolute monsters. Lin Moyu realized that mission was out of his league for now. As he turned to leave, a guard stopped him, shocked to see a level 7 necromancer. The guard demanded to know who he was and where he came from. After checking his details, the guard activated his travel certificate. He warned Lin Moyu that the world outside the city was dangerous and told him to retreat if things got bad. His life was the most important thing. Stepping outside the city walls was like entering another world. The air smelled of blood, and he could hear the growls of beasts in the distance. A huge goblin appeared right in front of him. Without a second thought, Lin Moyu gave a simple command to his unseen army: kill it. The system identified it as a level 10 goblin patrol, but against one of Lin Moyu's skeleton warriors, it stood absolutely no chance. The system showed the skeleton warrior's stats. Even at level 7, its attributes were a massive 375 points each. The goblin was completely outmatched. The goblin looked absolutely terrified. It knew it was done for. His army of skeletons just mowed down everything in their path. The experience points and loot kept rolling in. He figured at this speed, he could probably hit level 15 before the final trial. But then he remembered his sister. She had reached level 16 before her trial. He had no idea how she managed to level up that fast. He remembered her kindness, always offering to make him whatever he wanted. In return, he promised her he would get into the top academy, just like she did. The grinding paid off. He hit level 10. His strength, agility, and physique all jumped to 100, but his spirit shot up to a massive 300 points. He couldn't believe it. People said mages got a big boost to spirit, but this was insane. He'd reached level 10 so quickly, and his hidden talent was already upgrading his skeletons. The new skeletons were bronze level. Their stats were a ridiculous 1,500 points each. Not only that, they now had an active damage skill called Rage Shot. This changed everything. Lin Moyu felt confident. With his new bronze skeleton warriors, he could probably dominate this whole area, but then he realized he'd already cleared out every monster in sight. Suddenly, an arrow shot right past his head. It hit him square in the shoulder, but that's when his passive skill, damage transfer, kicked in. Instead of him taking the hit, the damage was sent straight to one of his skeleton warriors. He turned and saw the attacker. She moved like a professional assassin, fast and cold. But then he saw 2 more people running towards them in the distance. They were clearly chasing the assassin, but they were headed in the wrong direction. The man with the spear called out, asking Lin Moyu if he'd seen someone in black clothes run by. Lin Moyu just stared back at him. He told the man that his arrow had hit him, and he expected an apology. The man who shot the arrow offered a quick apology. He was confused, wondering how a kid could take an arrow and be totally fine. Lin Moyu just waved it off, telling him not to do it again. The man seemed pretty annoyed, thinking Lin Moyu didn't understand the situation he was in. That's when the assassin who attacked him saw it. Standing right next to Lin Moyu was one of his skeleton warriors. The blonde man looked disgusted. He muttered that undead summons were a disgusting profession, and that only criminals with dark minds could use them. He was sure Lin Moyu was a bad guy. His friend told him to stop talking. He already knew. As they walked away, Lin Moyu thought they were lucky. If they had pushed him any further, he would have made them regret it. He got back to grinding. His skeletons were tearing through goblins, but the experience points were slowing down. After level 10, the amount of XP needed to level up had tripled. He'd have to kill thousands of monsters just to gain a single level, but there wasn't much time. He couldn't turn back now. If he wanted to get into the academy like his sister, he had to push himself harder than everyone else. skills. So he got up and sent his army forward again. He sat by the fire, calculating his progress. At this rate, he could probably hit level 13 by tomorrow, but getting to 15 would be a real push. Reaching level 16 like his sister seemed even further away. He couldn't shake the thought of his sister. How did she level up so fast? He remembered the assassin from earlier. Maybe that was the key, teaming up with other people to take on tougher dungeons for more experience. He decided that had to be it. He'd go check it out tomorrow. The night was quiet as he sat there with his thoughts. Suddenly, someone stepped out of the darkness. Lin Moyu looked up, surprised. He wondered who else would be out here, grinding this late at night. He recognized her immediately. It was the assassin who shot him. But instead of attacking, she just asked if he had any food. Without a word, he just handed her some bread. She took it, her eyes fixed on the food. He realized she wasn't just hungry, she was starving. She started stuffing her face like she hadn't eaten in days. He offered her his water bottle. After she took a drink, she looked at him with a small smile and thanked him. Then, she asked for his name. Lin Moyu didn't answer her. He just stared back, saying nothing. The assassin smiled. She suggested that if he wasn't going to talk, they could just use their skills to analyze each other instead. Without waiting for an answer, she activated her analytic skill on him. A system window popped up, but it just said, analysis failed. She was surprised for a second. Then she smirked and teased him about it. But then another window appeared. His analysis had worked. She saw his name was Lin Moyu. He was level 10, and his occupation was Necromancer. She'd never even heard of a class like that before. Suddenly, it clicked. She remembered seeing a skeleton warrior with him that afternoon. She realized it had to be his summon, and she knew undead summons were incredibly rare. She turned it back to him, still confused about why he was so quiet. She asked if he was mute. That's when Lin Moyu finally spoke, asking a simple question. Why? Her face lit up, excited that he could actually talk. She immediately asked him what he meant by why. She explained that his analysis failed because of a special item she had, a blocking badge. It stops anyone from using an analytic skill on her unless they're 10 levels higher. Then she challenged him to try again. So Lin Moyu used his own skill. The system window popped up instantly, showing her name was Ning Yi, a level 19 shadow assassin. He was surprised she was such a high level. Suddenly, they both went still. Something was out there in the dark. 3 men stepped out of the shadows, smiling like they had them trapped. Lin Moyu's skeletons had already spotted them trying to form a circle around them. The assassin looked completely fed up. She complained that these guys had been chasing her for days, all because of some mid-rank skill book. She decided it wasn't worth it. She told Lin Moyu she was leaving and would find him later, then took off in a blur. But one of the men wasn't letting her go that easily. He fired a glowing red arrow that created a strange circle of light on the ground. She stopped and looked back, furious. It was a marking arrow. Now they could track her wherever she went. Lin Moyu understood now. The archer had anti-invisibility skills. That arrow wasn't just an attack. It was a tracker, made specifically to counter assassins. The archer smirked, telling them they came prepared. He was sure they had nowhere left to run. The assassin landed right beside Lin Moyu. She was disgusted, calling them a team of rats who worked together. She tried to make a deal, offering them the skill book if they let Lin Moyu go. But their leader just laughed. He said it was safer to kill them both, because dead people can't talk. Ning Yi turned to Lin Moyu, telling him to run while she bought him some time. She thought he was just a level 10 and didn't want him getting hurt because of her. She confidently claimed that as a shadow assassin, she had her ways of getting out. But Lin Moyu pointed out that if she was really that capable, she wouldn't have been running away in the middle of the day. The leader agreed, mocking her. With that mark on her, her invisibility skill was completely gone. He told his men to stop wasting time and get her, but the archer had other plans. As he charged up a massive attack, he yelled that he didn't just want her life, he wanted Lin Moyu dead too. The archer raised his staff and unleashed a blinding light spell. The entire area lit up as if the sun had just appeared in the sky. He sneered, explaining that the skill wasn't just for light. It was the perfect counter to an assassin's invisibility. He was sure she had nowhere left to run. The assassin knew she was trapped. Gripping her blade, she prepared to give it everything she had. The entire enemy team moved at once. The leader, the shield bearer, and the archer all prepared to strike. From the shadows, another archer took aim. The assassin was caught in the open, running right toward Lin Moyu. Lin Moyu didn't seem worried at all. He just raised his hand and summoned a skeleton warrior. The enemy leader scoffed, disgusted by his undying summons. He unleashed a massive fireball, yelling that his flames would turn Lin Moyu to ashes. But before the fireball hit, Lin Moyu grabbed the assassin and pulled her away, telling her to run. As she tried to run, she suddenly stopped. Blue energy strings had wrapped around her legs, holding her in place. She had no idea where they came from. The enemy archer saw his chance. He fired off a triple shot, boasting that it would be more than enough to finish her. The assassin could only watch as the arrows flew right at her. But before the arrows could hit, Lin Moyu stepped in and knocked her out cold. The massive fireball was still coming right for them. The whole situation was a complete mess. That's when one of Lin Moyu's skeletons appeared, planting its huge sword in the ground to shield her from the blast. The fireball slammed right into the skeleton. The impact was huge, but the summon held held its ground. At the same time, the shield bearer charged forward, yelling for them to stop. But another skeleton, this one with a giant axe, moved to block his path. It swung its axe with incredible force, sending the man flying backward. He didn't stand a chance. The skeleton warrior stood there, surrounded by fire, looking like something out of a nightmare. The mage couldn't believe it. His analysis skill told him Lin Moyu was just a level 10 necromancer. This made no sense. The others started to panic. Their skills had absolutely no effect on the summons, and they couldn't understand why. A chilling blue energy filled the air, surrounding them all. No one dared to move. That's when they saw it. It wasn't just a few skeletons. An entire army was emerging from the darks. They just kept coming. A silent legion of the dead, stretching as far as the eye could see. The assassin finally came to, and her eyes went wide. She couldn't process what she was seeing. These couldn't be the summons of a level 10 player. She realized this wasn't a fair fight. It wasn't a fight at all. This was just too much. The assassin looked up at Lin Moyu, completely stunned. She couldn't believe this was the same person she tried to take down just moments ago. Her analytic skill revealed his stats. His name was Lin Moyu, a level 10 necromancer with a unique class, but his spirit was already at 300. But that wasn't even the crazy part. He had 44 skeleton warriors summoned, and a talent that boosted all his skills by 10 times. That's how a level 10 player could summon an army of bronze-level monsters. Mage panicked and threw up a magical shield. It was the only thing he could think to do as the skeletons closed in, but the barrier didn't even slow them down. It started cracking the moment they hit it. In a flash, the shield shattered into a million pieces. He was completely defenseless. The mage tried to fight back, unleashing a powerful fire spell and yelling for the skeletons to taste his power, but it was useless. The skeletons were just too strong. Two of them struck at once, and just like that, he was gone. The archer couldn't believe it. His teammate was killed in seconds. He knew the mage had an agility of 1,000, so he shouldn't have been caught. That's when a system message popped up, showing the skeleton's agility was 1,500. They never stood a chance. The archer turned to run, but it was impossible to escape. His teammate with the shield charged forward to help, but another skeleton met him head on. Lin Moyu watched as the skeleton's attack completely shattered the man's defensive skill. The knight's shield glowed, but it wasn't enough. He couldn't believe these were just level 20 summons. Coming here for a skill scroll suddenly felt like the worst mistake of his life. Lin Moyu decided he wasn't letting anyone escape. He ordered his skeletons to stop the man from running. The system activated Berserk Strike, a skill that hit with 200% of the skeleton's strength. The knight realized the skeletons could use skills too. His own defensive ability was already at its limit. He was completely surrounded. With one last curse, his fight was over. He remembered someone telling him once, if you decide to do something, do it without hesitation. The assassin looked over at Lin Moyu, completely stunned. The entire enemy team was dead, and he hadn't even moved an inch. Lin Moyu turned his attention to the items left behind. The system showed 4 pieces of bronze rank gear, a staff, a bow, a shield, and a sword. The assassin recognized the weapons. She explained they were from a level 20 dungeon, meaning the group must have run it often. Lin Moyu didn't care about the gear itself, but figured he could sell it. He just casually put everything into his storage. The assassin handed him a primary skill scroll. It could teach skills below level 20. She thought it was pretty valuable, but figured he wouldn't even need it. When he asked how to use it, she was a little surprised, thinking he must not be hurting for money. She told him it was simple. He just had to say the word use while holding it. He tried it, but nothing happened. The assassin just laughed, teasing him that he said it too softly and needed to shout it for it to work. But Lin Moyu realized she was just messing with him. The scroll didn't need words. It needed spiritual energy. The moment he poured his power into it, the scroll burst into flames. It worked. He had learned a new skill, Corpse Explosion. At its base level, it could blow up a body and deal damage to enemies within 1 meter. He was pretty happy with that, but for him, it was way better than it sounded. His god-level talent enhanced all his skills tenfold, and 1 meter radius instantly became 10 meters. And that wasn't even the best part. As long as one corpse exploded, it could set off a chain reaction with any other bodies caught in the blast. It was an unstoppable area of effect attack. The assassin asked if he learned a new skill. He just nodded. She told him he had a nice voice, and it was a shame he didn't talk more. Lin Moyu watched her, thinking to himself that this girl was very different from the ones he knew from school. The assassin agreed that he had a nice voice too. Then she playfully thanked him for the compliment, adding that she knew her own voice was very nice as well. As a way to repay him for saving her life, she offered him a small chest. Inside was an intermediate skill scroll. This was a huge deal. It could grant a skill between level 40 and 70 and was worth at least 1 million, 100 times more than the last one he got. Lin Moyu was confused. This scroll was the reason she was being chased, so why would she just give it away? She began to explain, saying she found it in a hidden chest in a dungeon, the kind that appears randomly. She'd just gotten lucky and stumbled upon one, getting the intermediate skill scroll after opening it. But she hadn't been alone. A group of players had been watching her. They tried to snatch the scroll, but she refused to hand over something she had found herself. So they started chasing her. She explained that she'd been running for 2 days straight, all the way from Shanghai City, and they were still on her tail. It was incredibly annoying. Lin Moyu told her she almost died, but she just smiled. She explained that if she'd taken too much damage, an item would have teleported her away automatically. Still, she thanked him. Without his help, she would have gotten hurt. Hearing that, Lin Moyu figured he'd been worried for nothing. She had to be from a powerful powerful family to own a treasure like that. The girl confirmed the skill scroll was his to keep, then asked if he had anything else to eat. As they ate, she asked if he was here just to level up. Seeing his current level, she guessed he hadn't gone to university yet, and asked about his plans. He told her he was aiming for Shajing University. She was impressed. She thought to herself that with his power, getting into any university would be easy. A level 10 who could crush multiple level 20 professionals. If he couldn't get into Xiajing, then probably no one could. She then gave him some advice. If he made it to Xiajing University, he had to go to the Shenxia Tower. She warned him that the first time you clear it, you get double the rewards, so he needed to push as far as he could on his first try. She explained that clearing the tower would give him a ton of points, which were basically money in Xiajing. She also told him about a place called the Creation Seminary, insisting he had to go there if he got the chance. After their talk, things grew quiet. The girl fell asleep on his shoulder. Lin Moyu closed his eyes and began to meditate, recovering his spiritual energy. The next morning, she woke up yawning. The first thing she did was ask if he had any more potatoes. She was hungry again. She demanded more food, but Lin Moyu just held up his hands. He told her there was really nothing left. She sighed, but said she believed him. With that, she got up to leave. She told him she was going to go level up, and that he should get stronger too, so they could adventure together next time. And just like that, she was gone, disappearing into the woods. The moment she was out of sight, Lin Moyu's focus shifted. It was time. He walked over to one of the bodies from the earlier fight. He had a noose. He pointed his hand at the body on the ground and used his new skill, Corpse Explosion. The blast was huge, tearing through the area with incredible force. Looking at the destruction, he realized his talent had boosted the skill's power and range way beyond normal. It was basically a god-tier ability now. With his new power tested, he decided on his next target, the Shihai Mine Dungeon. He knew his skeleton warriors were stronger now, but they also cost more spirit points to summon. The system showed he currently had 48 warriors ready. He wasn't worried about his summoning limit. He knew he'd fill it up eventually. In the distance, he could see the entrance to the Yihai Mine. A huge crowd of people were gathered at the entrance, all trying to form parties. They were shouting for healers and knights to take on the normal difficulty dungeon. Lin Moyu just walked right past all of them, completely unfazed. He and his skeleton warrior didn't need a party. He reached the dungeon entrance. The system gave him a choice, normal or nightmare. Nightmare difficulty was a whole different level, with much stronger monsters and fewer advantages. As he walked, one of the other players tried to use a skill on him, asking if he was a summoner, but the failed instantly. A system message popped up saying a shielding badge had blocked it. The player froze when the skeleton warrior turned and glared right at him. A moment later, another group approached him. They said they were an elite team taking on nightmare difficulty and offered him a spot as their damage dealer. Lin Moyu just turned them down flat. He walked right up to the entrance by himself. The system asked him to confirm that he had chosen nightmare difficulty. He didn't even hesitate. As he disappeared inside, the other players were stunned. They couldn't believe he was actually trying to clear a nightmare dungeon all by himself. The guy who tried to him admitted he couldn't get any information. The others just decided to wait, thinking he was just showing off and would come running back out like a coward. The moment Lin Moyu stepped into the mining dungeon, he could smell blood. He knew that as soon as he left the starting circle, the monsters would be on him. The system immediately showed him the enemy's stats. It was a goblin mine guard, an enhanced elite monster. Its strength and toughness were way higher than any normal monster he'd seen. He realized that even a level 14 knight would have less than half the goblin's toughness. A normal professional would have no chance of clearing this place alone. But for him, it was a different story. Compared to his skeletons, the goblin's stats were nothing. He gave the order, and his army moved out. The fight was over in a second. The skeleton warriors cut the goblin down without any trouble. He got 4,200 experience points from that one kill. That was 10 times more than a normal monster. Killing just one enemy in here was like killing 10 outside. With his leveling speed about to skyrocket, he made a decision. He wasn't going to leave a single monster alive. It only took a few seconds of his army fighting for him to level up. The plan was already working perfectly. It was unbelievable. He had reached level 11 in just 5 minutes. Leveling up also refilled his spirit, allowing him to summon 4 more skeleton warriors. His army was now 56 strong. The system confirmed his unique talent had also leveled up. But more importantly, now that he was past level 10, his basic attributes would start growing much faster with every new level. He quickly did the math. His strength and agility would now jump by 20 points per level instead of 10, and his spirit would increase by a massive 100 points. His power was about to grow at an insane rate, and it wasn't just him. His skeleton warrior's base attributes also increased by 20 points. After his personal buffs were applied, that became a 200-point boost for every single one of them. But then he noticed something odd. All of his old skills had leveled up automatically with him. His newest one, Corpse Explosion, was still stuck at level 1. He didn't understand why. He thought back to the girl he'd met. She seemed to know a lot. Maybe she would have had an answer. A notification popped up, telling him he'd already cleared over 30% of the dungeon. Suddenly, he felt a change in the air. Something was coming. A massive wolf wolf with glowing red eyes appeared before him. The system identified it as the Mine Wolf King, a level 15 elite leader. Its stats were on a completely different level. This was the boss. Lin Moyu wasn't intimidated. The wolf might be strong, but it was still just one enemy against his entire army. With a single word, he sent them all charging forward. The Wolf King let out a roar, unleashing a powerful shockwave. But Lin Moyu knew his skeletons were tough enough to handle it. His warriors swarmed the beast, their blades glowing red as they unleashed a barrage of attacks. The bigger the enemy, the more of an advantage his army had. They completely surrounded the wolf, leaving it no room to escape. The wolf roared again, blasting the skeletons away from it. The attack wasn't very strong, but it was enough to knock them back. And then it just ran. Lin Moyu couldn't believe it. A dungeon boss was actually trying to escape. He looked into the darkness where it had fled. That's when he saw them. Hundreds of red eyes, all staring back at him. He realized something was terribly wrong. The Wolf King hadn't been alone. It had called its entire pack. He was now facing a sea of level 14 mining wolves. He knew a normal team would be wiped out by this many wolves. But for a necromancer, this wasn't a threat. It was just a huge pile of experience points waiting to be collected. He held out his hands and began to cast a spell. Corpse Explosion. The explosion ripped through the pack. Because of his talent, the skill was so powerful, it wiped them out instantly. Notifications started flooding in as he collected experience and loot from all the kills. His experience bar shot up. With the smaller wolves gone, he turned his attention back to the Wolf King. He finished off the Wolf King with another blast. The experience wasn't great for a boss, but at least the items it dropped were valuable. He kept moving deeper into the mine, clearing out more monsters along the way. He figured if he went to higher level dungeons in the future, the experience would be much better. He realized he'd leveled up in just over an hour. At this rate, he could probably hit level 19 if he just kept clearing the dungeon a few more times. He finally reached the end of the dungeon. The final boss, a massive goblin king, was sleeping right in front of him. A quick look at its stats showed it was a level 16 monster with insane strength and health. He figured this was exactly what he needed to level up. The goblin king's eyes snapped open. Lin Moyu could see his army reflected in its massive red eye. He knew right away this boss was on another level. Its stats were way higher than any of his skeletons. The boss didn't waste any time. It swung its weapon with incredible force. The hit landed squarely on Lin Moyu. But instead of taking damage, a blue light flared. His passive skill, damage transfer, sent the full force of the blow to one of his skeletons instead. The skeleton warrior took the hit for him, its body glowing with the absorbed energy. The force was too much. The skeleton shattered into 1,000 pieces. Lin Moyu watched as the attack tore through not one, but two of his skeletons. The system called it a raid strike. The boss had just wiped out 2 of his summons with a single hit. That's when it clicked for him. His own stats were the problem. His defense was so low compared to the boss's attack power that the transferred damage was still huge. Even with his passive skill, his skeletons couldn't survive hits like that for long. He was the weak link. He realized the problem wasn't his skeletons. It was him. His own stats were the real weakness. He knew he had to focus on getting tougher. The system windows made it obvious. The Goblin King's strength was almost double that of a single skeleton. One-on-one, his summons didn't stand a chance. But that was the thing about fighting a Necromancer. The Goblin King might be stronger than one skeleton, but Lin Moyu had an entire army ready to go. The Goblin King was tearing through his army. Lin Moyu knew if this kept up, he'd lose all of his skeletons. The boss then slammed its weapon down, unleashing a massive shockwave. This attack was way stronger than anything he'd faced before. The Goblin King followed up with a powerful fire breath, burning through his skeletons. Seeing this, Lin Moyu knew he had to act fast. He immediately pulled his entire army back into his summoning space to save them. With his skeletons safe, Lin Moyu launched his own attack. He blasted the Goblin King with a direct hit of Soul Flame. His spirit was running low, so he knew this had to be the final push. He summoned his army again, and they swarmed the Goblin King from all sides, overwhelming it completely. And just like that, it was over. The system confirmed the kill, rewarding him with a huge amount of experience. He also got a bronze sword, a robe, and something called the Goblin King's Core. The experience from the boss pushed him over the edge. He had finally reached level 12. Thankfully, leveling up restored all his spirit, which he had completely used up in the fight. With the dungeon cleared, it was time to head out. He took a look at the wisdom robe he'd picked up. He realized that since his necromancer skills were so different from a regular mage's, the cooldown reduction wasn't much help. Still, it boosted his spirit and physique by 10 points each, which was a nice bonus. He looked at the Goblin King's Core. It was worth a lot, easily the price of 2 good pieces of gear. The dungeon run had definitely paid off. After leveling up, his spirit was fully restored. The system showed his summoning capacity had increased, allowing him to call even more skeleton warriors than before. With everything sorted, he decided it was time to leave. Outside, a group of adventurers were stunned to see him walk out alive. They couldn't believe it, especially when they saw he was wearing the wisdom robe, an item that only drops from the boss. The crowd was buzzing. No one could imagine someone so young clearing the whole dungeon by himself. Lin Moyu ignored them. He knew the dungeon had a long cooldown, so he decided to just wait and use the time to recover his spirit power. While he waited, he thought about the fight. That last battle had taught him a lot about his biggest weakness and how his skills really worked together. He realized that if he used Corpse Explosion the right way, it was basically an unbeatable skill. And Soul Flame wasn't just for interrupting attacks. It could even ignore an enemy's defense, making it a nightmare for any boss. 12 hours passed. His spirit was back, and he could summon his warriors again. He walked towards the dungeon entrance, noticing the other groups gathered around. These people looked like they knew what they were doing, probably experienced adventurers who often hunted out here. As Lin Moyu walked past, he could feel the eyes of the other adventurers on him. They were still trying to process what he'd done, but up ahead, he saw a huge crowd gathered near the entrance. Something was definitely going on. Turns out, a group called the Dynasty Guild was blocking the dungeon. One of the adventurers was furious, demanding to know what gave them the right to stop everyone else from entering. The guild member calmly explained that their leader was inside completing a task, and no one else was allowed in until he was done. The crowd wasn't buying it, accusing them of just throwing their weight around. Tired of the argument, the guild member just told him to shut up. Then he unleashed a massive fire blast without any warning. The adventurer was hit head-on and collapsed. The crowd stared in disbelief. They couldn't believe the guild had just killed him for arguing. The guild leader just sneered, calling the man useless. He then dared anyone else with insides to try and get revenge. That's when someone in the crowd spotted Lin Moyu. He recognized him as the guy who had just cleared the entire dungeon all by himself. The adventurer explained why the guild was so desperate. They were after the Goblin King's core, a super rare item that only drops on nightmare difficulty. It only appears once every 100 days, and today was the day. Turns out, the Dynasty Guild had put out a quest for the core before, but no one had ever been able to complete it. Someone else in the crowd scoffed, saying the core was worth a fortune, and the guild was just trying to get it cheap. Lin Moyu asked what was so special about the core. The adventurer told him it could be crafted into a Goblin King's ring. The ring boosts all of a player's stats by 10 and increases all their skill levels by 1. It was the best accessory anyone could get below level 40. The stats were insane for a low-level item. The adventurer added that the guild's leader was trying to get into a top academy and desperately needed the ring to do it. Basically, their entire guild was there just to help one guy get an item. Lin Moyu had heard enough. He started walking toward the guild members, saying they were in his way of leveling up. The adventurer panicked, trying to call him back and warning him that he'd be killed. The guild members turned to face him. The leader laughed, mocking him for being a solo player, trying to challenge their entire guild. He asked if Lin Moyu was looking to end up like the last guy. Lin Moyu just looked at him coldly and said they were blocking his way. The guild leader couldn't believe it. He screamed at Lin Moyu, asking who he thought he was talking to, and charged forward with his weapon glowing. He didn't even flinch. He just repeated himself, telling the man to get lost. The guild leader saw Lin Moyu's level and class. He laughed, calling him a level 12 rookie and mocking his necromancer profession. He told him to just go kill monsters outside instead of trying to get into the dungeon. The adventurer who had explained everything tried to pull him back. He warned Lin Moyu that the Dynasty Guild doesn't play fair and would absolutely kill him, but Lin Moyu just stared back, completely unfazed. The guild leader started to sweat. He couldn't figure out why this kid's calm expression was making him so nervous. His fear quickly turned back to anger. He powered up an attack and screamed that if Lin Moyu took one more step, he was dead. Lin Moyu took that step. That was all it took. The guild leader gave the order, and his entire team prepared to attack at once. But before they could move, something massive erupted from the ground. A skeleton warrior, far larger and more terrifying than anything they'd ever seen, appeared right in front of them. The guild leader, a level 25 mage, was stunned by its power. He knew his shield wouldn't be able to take a single hit. The skeleton raised its weapon, which began to glow with a red energy. The system called it a rage strike. The leader knew, in that instant, if that attack landed, he was finished. But the guild leader wasn't going down that easily. At the last second, he threw up a wall of fire to block the attack. The force of the impact sent him flying, but he was alive. He screamed at his guildmates, asking what they were waiting for and ordering them to attack. Filled with rage, the leader launched his own spell. He swore he would destroy every last one of Lin Moyu's disgusting summons. But his guildmates weren't having any luck. One of their knights was completely overpowered. His weapon shattered. He couldn't believe a summon could be this strong. The leader realized they were wasting their time. He yelled at his team to forget the skeletons and kill the summoner. They took out Lin Moyu. The summons would disappear. The guild's archers immediately took aim, and they warned that anyone who dared to challenge the Dynasty Guild had to be prepared to die. A volley of arrows flew straight at Lin Moyu. Someone in the crowd yelled for him to watch out, but Lin Moyu didn't even flinch. He just raised his hand and summoned more of his army from the shadows. The arrows flew, but they were completely useless. They just shattered against the skeletons' bodies and blades, not even scratching them. The guild members couldn't believe their eyes. They had never seen anything like this. The guild leader was stunned. He hadn't realized Lin Moyu could summon more than one. Seeing more skeletons appear, he yelled at his team to buy him some time. Someone in the crowd recognized the spell. They panicked, explaining it was an exclusive skill for a level 20 mage, the strongest attack they had. They were sure Lin Moyu was done for. A huge wave of fire swept over the area, right where Lin Moyu was standing. The guild leader watched, a smug look on his face, certain that the fight was over. The explosion was huge, and it looked like it swallowed everything in its path. But when the smoke cleared, the leader's confidence turned to pure terror. The army of skeletons was even bigger than before, easily outnumbering his entire guild. He could only scream that they were facing a monster. The guild leader refused to give up. He screamed for his team to get into formation and attack. Down below, his guild members received buffs, their strength and speed increasing for the fight. He demanded support and blessings from his casters. He yelled that his guild was experienced and knew how to work together, boasting that the Dynasty Guild was unbeatable. Lin Moyu just told the onlookers to step back. Then he raised his hand, a blue fire gathering in his palm. He was ready to use a skill called Soul Flame. One of the skeleton's attacks landed, hitting a guild member hard. A healer instantly rushed in, casting a spell to save him. The guild leader was impressed, thinking their healers were top-notch. But the healer who cast the spell looked up in pure terror. The healing did nothing. The man was already dead. He couldn't believe it. His best healer couldn't even save one person. He looked down at the chaos, finally understanding the situation. He wondered if his entire guild was really about to be wiped out by a single person. That's when Lin Moyu gave the order for his entire army to attack them all at once. The guild leader could only scream for a shield, bracing for the wave of skeletons charging at him. The skeletons were relentless. One of the guild's frontline fighters screamed that he couldn't hold on. The leader watched in horror, yelling for his support casters to help, but the support was too late. The knight's shield shattered into pieces as the dark energy tore right through him. He screamed for help one last time. The guild leader watched his team get swallowed by the chaos. He knew it was over. Their formation had completely fallen apart. All his pride was gone. He just screamed for everyone to run, yelling that Lin Moyu wasn't human at all. But one of the giant skeletons blocked their path. It told them there was nowhere left to run. That's when Lin Moyu activated his next skill, Corpse Explosion. He explained that his special talent boosted its power, making it deal damage equal to 100% of an enemy's total health. He knew that knights had some of the highest health of any profession. An attack that dealt 100% of that meant no one could possibly survive it. The guild leader was caught right in the middle of the blast. He screamed as the explosion completely swallowed him. In his last moment, all the guild leader could feel was pure terror. When it was over, Lin Moyu stood alone in the devastation. He casually wiped a bit of dust from his face, as if nothing had happened. The energy from the corpse explosion slowly faded away. The people who had been watching from a distance were in shock. The entire Dynasty Guild was gone, without even a body left behind. They decided it was best to leave quietly before they got involved. Half an hour passed. Elsewhere, another group had run into their own problems. Their leader was annoyed that he couldn't get the Goblin King's core. One of his teammates ran up to him, panicked. She told him their other teams were gone, and they couldn't reach anyone. The leader wondered what was going on, asking if Zhao Ji had just left them behind. But something felt very wrong. He knew Zhao Ji was supposed to be the strongest person in the area. If he'd been in a fight, there should have been some sign of it. The leader decided it was too dangerous to stay, and told his team to leave immediately. An hour later, the fight was still raging. Lin Moyu and his skeletons were locked in battle with the dungeon's final boss. After taking down the Goblin King, the system rewarded him with a ton of experience, a bronze weapon, and a monster core. But he was confused. It seemed like someone else had also killed a Goblin King. He also got a magic book, which he decided to hold on to for now. He realized the magic book was perfect for boosting his soul flame and corpse explosion skills, but it wouldn't do anything for his skeleton warriors. The experience pushed him to level 13. He knew leveling up was getting harder. To reach level 15, he'd have to clear this dungeon at least 3 more times. His level was a bit lower than he wanted, but it was enough. It would get him into Xiaojing Academy. With his goal set, he decided to teleport out. Back outside, he saw that everyone had left. He couldn't blame them. It was the smart move. The dungeon was on cooldown now, so he'd have to come back tomorrow. The next day, a girl named Xia Shui arrived at the dungeon, excited that she'd finally reached the right level to enter. But then she saw him. It was Lin Moyu, the only necromancer in the world. She couldn't believe it. He was going in alone, but she quickly shook off her surprise. She was a rare elemental mage, so finding a party would be easy. She wasn't about to lose to him. 45 minutes later, Lin Moyu was still grinding inside the dungeon. After meditating to recover his spirit, his army had grown. He now had 72 skeleton warriors ready to fight. He raised his hand, channeling his power. It was time to wake them up for another round. He took down the Goblin King once more, getting a ton of experience and a new bronze bow. That last kill pushed him to level 13. He almost felt bad for the goblin, explaining that he had no choice but to keep killing it to level up. 12 hours later, he was back at it. He'd killed the Goblin King so many times, they were practically old friends. Another run, another kill, and he finally hit level 14. Back outside, he took a moment to rest. His army was now 78 strong, and his personal stats had soared. The only downside was that he couldn't upgrade his skeleton's skills yet. That's when he heard someone call his name. It was Xia Shui. She had just come out of the dungeon herself. She walked right up to him and asked what his level was. He told her he was level 14. She was completely floored. Level 14? She couldn't believe how fast he was. She explained that her party, one of the strongest around, had struggled just to to get her to level 11. She couldn't understand how he was leveling up so much faster. Furious, she declared that she wouldn't lose to him and stormed off to find another party. Lin Moyu just watched her go, completely confused. He wondered how she was able to enter the dungeon again so quickly without a cooldown. An hour later, Xia Shui was completely out of breath. She looked like she'd been through a war, while Lin Moyu just sat there, looking perfectly fine. Her competitive side took over completely. She immediately started looking for another party, shouting that she was a level 11 mage and needed to run the dungeon again, right now. Another hour passed, and it was the same story. She was on the ground, completely spent, vowing that she wouldn't lose to him. Half an hour later, she finally managed to sit up. She was exhausted, but told him she'd finally hit level 12 and was catching up. Lin Moyu finally asked her if she was tired. She admitted she didn't even want to lift a finger. He couldn't understand why she was pushing herself so hard just because of their level difference. Furious, she yelled that if she'd known this would happen, she never would have given him that potion in the first place. He tried to give her some advice, telling her to try clearing the nightmare difficulty to level up faster. She shot back that it was impossible. The good academies only wanted people who were level 16 or higher, and at her level, no one would team up with her for a nightmare run. She felt completely stuck. That's when Lin Moyu asked the question he'd been waiting to ask the whole time. He wanted to know how she was able to ignore the dungeon cooldowns and enter over and over again. She was shocked. She couldn't believe there was something he didn't know. A grin spread across her face. This was her chance to finally get one up on him. She teased that she'd tell him the secret, but only if he asked nicely. When he didn't play along, she just gave up and called him an idiot. She explained that she had a special item that let her reset the dungeon cooldowns. She handed him the item. It was a beginner-level cooldown talisman. The system explained it could reset dungeon cooldowns, but only for dungeons below level 20. Lin Moyu was shocked. He had no idea these things even existed. He asked if it was expensive. She admitted it must be, because her father looked sad when he gave it to her. The pressure was getting to her. She realized she had to clear the dungeon 9 more times in just 2 days to reach level 15. The thought alone was exhausting. Seeing her struggle, Lin Moyu made an offer. He told her to party up with him. That way, she could hit level 15 without lifting a finger. She was stunned. She remembered he was the guy who solo cleared dungeons. If she took his help, she'd never catch up to him on her own. She made her decision. She agreed to party up, accepting that she couldn't surpass him this time, but she promised herself she would, eventually. Lin Moyu told her to get some rest, saying they'd start in 2 hours. She immediately lay down for a nap. While she slept, Lin Moyu began to recover his spirit. They had a long grind ahead of them. 2 hours later, Xia Shui was rested and ready to go. She stretched, feeling like the time flew by. Lin Moyu and one of his skeletons stood with her at the dungeon entrance. Without saying a word, Lin Moyu selected the difficulty. When the red skull icon for nightmare level appeared, Xia Shui panicked. She grabbed him, asking if he'd really just chosen the hardest setting. They were inside. The monster stats were huge. Xia Shui was terrified, pointing out that these were definitely nightmare level creatures, and asking if he'd made a mistake. She started yelling that he was crazy and they were going to die. Lin Moyu just told her to stay close. She looked down, embarrassed, expecting him to make fun of her for being scared. He casually told her to walk faster, teasing her about being scared. She screamed internally that she wasn't scared at all. The skeletons engaged the goblins. Xia Shui watched from a distance, completely stunned. The monster's attacks weren't even scratching his summons. They just ran right past the fight, leaving the skeletons to handle everything. Xia Shui couldn't understand his strategy at all. Suddenly, they were in the boss room. A giant, chained wolf stood before them. Xia Shui's eyes went wide. It was the Nightmare Wolf King, way bigger than the normal one. The moment the fight started, Lin Moyu unleashed a massive attack. Red energy swirled around the Nightmare Wolf King, completely overwhelming it. He called out the skill's name, Corpse Explosion. He realized fighting the normal way was just a waste of time. This was much faster. Suddenly, notifications flooded Xia Shui's vision. She was getting experience for killing level 14 guards. Her experience bar shot up by 30% instantly. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. She'd never imagined someone could just blow their way through a dungeon like this. And just like that, the Nightmare Wolf King was dead. Xia Shui remembered her own party fighting for 20 minutes just to kill the normal version. This one went down in less than a minute. As they walked on, she finally had to ask him if he'd been clearing nightmare dungeons this whole time. She admitted that if she hadn't seen it herself, she never would have believed a player under level 20 could do it alone. Still trying to process it, she asked if he'd really been solo, clearing dungeons like this since he was a level 10. He just calmly said, yeah. Before she could even react, they were standing in front of the final boss. She realized it hadn't even been 10 minutes since they entered. Her old parties used to take at least an hour to get this far. Just like that, the final boss was gone. Xia Shui couldn't believe it. It was killed in a single hit. A golden light surrounded Lin Moyu. He had leveled up again, hitting level 15. Xia Shui was speechless. She looked at her own experience bar. She was only level 12. The difference between them just kept getting bigger. The loot from the Goblin King appeared. The system showed a bronze longsword and a monster core. Xia Shui mentioned that the Goblin King's scepter was the strongest weapon a mage could get before level 20, but she didn't have the money to buy one. A moment later, the Goblin King's scepter dropped. Without a word, Lin Moyu held it out to her and just told her to take it. She took it, thanking him, but asked why he didn't want it. He just held up a magic book explaining that he already had a weapon and didn't like scepters. She clutched the scepter, thinking. She'd never once seen him use that magic book. She wondered if it was because, for him, it was too small of an item to even bother with. Turns out, he'd already hit level 16. His stats had jumped again. He thought to himself that gathering monsters and using corpse explosion was definitely the fastest way to level up. Lin Moyu kneeled over the fallen Goblin King. He told the creature he was sorry, but he'd have to kill it 5 more times. Xia Shui couldn't believe what she was hearing. She asked him why he was talking to the boss, since it couldn't understand him. Lin Moyu just said it didn't matter. She watched him walk away, thinking about how strange he was. Who apologizes to a monster? Still, she couldn't help but think it was kind of cute. Once they were outside, Lin Moyu said it was time to go again. She agreed, and they headed right back into the dungeon. They completed their second run just as easily as the first, and then the third, the fourth, and the fifth. They just kept clearing the dungeon over and over without stopping. Xia Shui was thrilled. She realized they had a day and a half before the big exam, enough time for 2 more runs. She was sure that if she hit level 15, passing would be easy, but another woman with them had a different idea. She asked Lin Moyu why he wasn't trying to become the champion. She explained that being champion came with a lot of points, which were a huge deal at the Xiajing Academy. More importantly, it could get you into the creation seminary, which she'd heard was one of the best in the country, filled with only the most talented elites. The woman told Lin Moyu he had a real shot at getting into the creation seminary. She said his dungeon clearing speed was completely unheard of, and if he couldn't get in, then nobody could. Lin Moyu thought about his sister, who was already at Xiajing Academy. That settled it for him. He would try for the seminary. Nearby, the woman noticed another student, a level 11 knight, named Gao Yang, but she dismissed him as too weak. A voice from off-screen told them to bring Lin Moyu along. He and the woman both agreed. Miles away, in an office, a man was absolutely furious. He screamed at his subordinate, asking if he was an idiot for trying to restrict dungeons. He warned him not to drag the whole guild down with his terrible ideas. The man at the desk ordered him to stay put. Just then, Gao Yang walked up with a big grin on his face. He started to tease Moyu and Xia Shui about being together, but she cut him off immediately. She was furious, threatening to rip his mouth apart if he didn't shut up. Gao Yang immediately changed his tune, saying he was just joking. He started begging them to help him get to level 12 before the exam, crying and calling them his saviors. Xia Shui warned him that if he kept acting like a clown, they wouldn't help him. Gao Yang instantly bowed, promising to listen and follow her every order without question. She snapped at him to shut up. He obeyed, but then asked how long it would be until their cooldowns reset. Xia Shui held up a flame and told him it would be 10 hours. Gao Yang decided to take a rest and hunt some other monsters while they waited. But as he left, he couldn't resist one last joke, teasing Moyu about getting with Xia Shui. He didn't get far. A massive fireball shot out of nowhere and blasted him. Xia Shui stood there fuming, saying Gao Yang was annoying and deserved it. Lin Moyu just calmly stated that teasing people is just how he is. 10 hours later, they were all standing in front of a dark dungeon entrance. The others were shocked to see it was nightmare difficulty, but Lin Moyu just told them to stop asking questions and follow him inside. Gao Yang was completely freaking out. Xia Shui seemed relieved that she wasn't the only one who had reacted that way. He tried to hide behind her, but she shoved him away. She yelled at him for cowering when he was a knight, reminding him this was nightmare difficulty. While they argued, Lin Moyu just raised a hand and cast corpse explosion. The nightmare difficulty boss was dead, just like that. Gao Yang couldn't believe it, screaming that a party of 10 would have struggled with that monster. Xia Shui just told him it was nothing to be surprised about. Gao Yang dropped to his knees in front of Lin Moyu, begging Boss Lin to bring him along on future dungeon clears. Xia Shui was embarrassed, telling him to have some backbone and act like a knight for once. He argued that with Moyu around, there was no point in acting like a knight. Moyu told him to get up, promising to bring him along. He calculated that with one more run, Xia Shui would reach level 15 and Gao Yang would hit level 12. Hearing this, Gao Yang was thrilled. With their leveling done, Lin Moyu's thoughts turned to what was next. The exam. Miles away, 2 figures stood on a high wall overlooking the city. One of them wondered aloud if the students were on their way back, noting that the exam was the next day. The other person, an older woman, asked him if the rumors were true. She'd heard that the 2 geniuses from their school were aiming for Xiajing Academy. The instructor confirmed that Lin Moyu and Xia Shui were both aiming for the big academy. He knew that getting to level 15 was good, but level 16 was a guaranteed pass. It was a level only Moyu's sister had ever reached for. He told the other instructor that with Moyu's family connection and Xia Shui's talent, they might just do something amazing. That's when he noticed someone else had arrived. 2 more students appeared. The first was Xu Zhen, a level 12 swordsman. He was followed by Wan Ming, a level 13 eagle-eye archer. The instructors started bickering. One boasted that his student was a level higher, but the other shot back that exam results were all that mattered. They started to wonder where Lin Moyu, Xia Shui, and Gao Yang were, getting worried that something had gone wrong. Just then, 3 figures appeared over the hill, walking against the setting sun. The bearded instructor let out a huge of relief. He was glad they were back safe, but he was also dying to know what levels they'd reached. The system windows popped up, showing their progress. Gao Yang, the sword shield knight, was now level 12. Xia Shui, the elemental mage, had hit level 15. The instructors couldn't believe it. The woman pointed out that reaching level 15 gave Xia Shui an incredible chance of getting into the academy. She turned to the bearded man, Old Lu, and congratulated him on his student's amazing success. But then, they saw Lin Moyu's level. He was a level 16 Necromancer. The instructors were stunned. They couldn't believe it. He was a whole level higher than Xia Shui. They realized the group must have been clearing dungeons non-stop to get that strong. They even had rare weapons from the Goblin King, which were almost impossible to get. With everyone accounted for, the principal told the students to get on the bus. He was clearly proud, muttering that this time, they'd finally get to show up their rivals. The instructor told everyone to rest well for the big exam the next day. With his new level, Moyu was confident he could get into the academy. He decided right then he would aim for first place and try to get into the legendary Creation Seminary. The next morning, Lin Moyu was ready. His spirit was fully recovered, and his stats were higher than ever. With an army of 100 skeletons at his command, he was in peak condition. As he arrived at the gathering spot, Gao Yang spotted him and waved, calling him Boss Lin. Xia Shui walked up and asked if he was confident about the exam. He just gave her a simple nod. She smiled, saying that they should meet again at Xiejing Academy. He agreed. The instructor handed each of them a glowing teleportation stone. He explained that they just had to break it to get to the exam site, but he made one thing clear. Their lives were the most important thing, and they should use the stone if they were in danger. In a flash, they arrived at the Jiangning Provincial Exam Center. The place was huge, with over 2,000 people gathered around. In the center of it all stood the trial tower. Suddenly, the entire tower began to glow. The trial was starting. A massive gate of light appeared with a clear warning. Read the rules carefully, and no questions allowed. A couple of students nearby were confused, wondering what they were supposed to do if they didn't understand something. The moment they spoke, they were hit with a blast of energy and disqualified on the spot. Gao Yang watched in shock, realizing just how serious this was. A message from the system explained that the tower would give everyone a different test based on their profession. Basically, battle-focused classes would get fighting tests, while support classes would have to deal with all sorts of tricky situations. The system then laid out the next part of the trial. After the basic test, everyone would get to choose from 3 difficulty levels: normal, nightmare, or hell. The harder the difficulty, the more points you could earn. These points were everything. They determined your exam results and could be used at the academies, where they were worth even more than gold. Then came the last rule. They could use any equipment they had on them, but their storage spaces would be sealed. No using extra items. Anyone who broke that rule would be instantly disqualified. With the rules explained, the students were ordered to line up and enter the tower. Lin Moyu joined the crowd, figuring the tower worked just like a dungeon, sending everyone to a different trial based on their profession. Meanwhile, a group of examiners watched from a distance. They were discussing Lin Moyu, the new Necromancer. Since they had no data on his class, they decided to treat him like a rare mage and send monsters 2 levels higher than him as a test. Lin Moyu was teleported into a stone room. His first opponent appeared, a wolf-orc mage. A countdown began, but a strange light around the monster was hiding its stats. He didn't seem worried. The second the countdown hit 0, he cast a spell called Soul Blaze. A blast of green energy shot out and completely consumed the monster. Back in the observation room, the examiner stared in disbelief. The system announced the result. Lin Moyu had cleared the trial in 0.1 seconds. It was an instant kill. Just then, one of the main examiners, Master Ning, walked into the room. He'd heard about the new profession and wanted to see it for himself. The other examiners were stumped. They explained that Lin Moyu had killed the monster instantly, so they had no idea how to judge his abilities. Master Ning wasn't angry. He just figured the test difficulty was way too low. He ordered them to run it again, but this time at the legendary level. He even promised to personally give Lin Moyu 1,000 bonus marks if he passed. Back in the trial room, the system announced the second exam. A level 20 wolf, Beastman Mage appeared, its eyes glowing with power. Lin Moyu's response was exactly the same. He just cast Soul Blaze. It was another instant kill. Master Ning declared that this kid's power was on the level of a legendary class. He decided there was no need for any more tests and ended the first round of exams right there. The system announced that out of more than 10,000 students, only about half had passed. It was time to reveal the scores. The scoreboard lit up, showing Lin Moyu in first place with a time of 0.1 seconds. A girl stared at the results, shocked by his speed, but determined not to give up. Another student was furious. He couldn't believe he wasn't in the top 3. He shouted that a 0.1 second clear time was impossible and had to be a mistake. The system announced the second round of exams. It was a combat test, and this time, students could choose their own difficulty. Lin Moyu wondered if he'd shown too much of his power in the first round. The rules were simple. He had 30 minutes to kill as many monsters as possible. Normal monsters were worth 1 point. Nightmare were worth 3, and hellish monsters were worth 5. He figured it was all about getting the highest score. Another student, a rage warrior named Wang Zihao, was already calculating his strategy. He knew that killing 1 hell-level monster was worth the same as 5 normal ones. He was sure that even though he lost the first round, he could easily win this one. Meanwhile, an elemental mage named Xia Shui knew her own limits. She was great in one-on-one fights, but she couldn't handle a huge crowd of monsters. The examiners watched from their room, noting that she wisely chose the normal difficulty. Everyone in the crowd was wondering the same thing. What difficulty would the Necromancer, Lin Moyu, choose? Lin Moyu understood the real test. This wasn't about a single burst of power. It was about fighting for 30 minutes straight, a challenge for any student. But one student smirked. confident he was the exception. He chose hellish difficulty without a second thought. Back in the observation room, one of the examiners, Old Lu, was proud that 2 of the top students were his. Another one joked that if Lin Moyu actually won this whole thing, Old Lu would be set for life. With his choice made, Lin Moyu was teleported into the trial. His first opponent appeared, a level 13 wolf, Beastman warrior. He looked at the monster, unimpressed. It was far too weak, but he figured the test was designed to filter out the weaker students, so it made sense. He raised his hand and summoned his warriors. 2 skeleton warriors appeared, their stats off the charts for their level. They tore through the Beastman instantly. Lin Moyu knew that with a new monster spawning every 5 seconds, these 2 were more than enough. Back in the observation room, the examiners were stunned. They couldn't believe how powerful his summons were, far stronger than anything they'd ever seen from a summoner class. This new profession was completely breaking the rules. Meanwhile, Wang Zihao was going all out, burning through his stamina to take down every monster he could. Even with all that effort, he was still barely keeping up with the other top students. But Lin Moyu wasn't even fighting. He was just sitting against a wall, casually drinking something he pulled from his pocket. One of the examiners laughed, telling the others to mark it down. He was the first student in history to just relax during the exam. When the 30 minutes were finally up, another student collapsed, completely exhausted. He had managed to kill 15 monsters on hell difficulty and was sure he'd taken first place. The system announced that the second round was officially over. He got to his feet, demanding to see the scoreboard. The remaining students were given a choice: continue to the next round or forfeit. The final scores appeared. Lin Moyu was at the top with over 16,000 points. The student who thought he'd won stared in disbelief. The second place score was only 470. He couldn't understand how it was even possible. While others fought for every single point, Lin Moyu's summons had been racking up an insane number. The student who thought he'd won couldn't believe it. He wondered how anyone could kill over 300 monsters in such a short time. It just didn't seem possible. Even the examiners were losing their minds. One of them told Old Lu his student was way too powerful. Old Lu just stayed calm and reminded them that even the most talented students from years past only scored around 700 points. The third trial was a boss fight. The students could choose between normal, nightmare, or hellish difficulty. Lin Moyu didn't even think about it. He just picked hellish. His opponent appeared, a level 15 wolf beastman captain. It was a hell level boss, but Lin Moyu wasn't impressed at all. He thought it was weaker than the elite monsters he'd fought before. He was actually a little disappointed. He knew the exam wouldn't have truly dangerous monsters, but he was hoping for more of a challenge. With a simple command, he sent his summon to take care of it. While Lin Moyu was bored, the other students were fighting for their lives. They were all pushing their limits, using every bit of power they had. But for Lin Moyu, the fight was already over. The hell level boss never stood a chance. Another instant kill. The examiners couldn't believe it. They felt like they hadn't even seen a hint of his real strength. One of them said they'd have to wait for the 4th round, but another was sure that even the final test wouldn't be enough to measure his true power. Lin Moyu checked the scoreboard. His score was 2,105. The student in second place had only 970. He was so far ahead, it wasn't even a competition anymore. An announcement echoed through the tower. The 4th and final round of the exam was about to begin. The difficulty would be much higher, but it was also a chance for everyone to change their fate. For some students, this was the moment they'd been waiting for. No one chose to forfeit. Every single student was ready to face the final test. With that settled, the system began to explain the rules. The students would have to face 10 waves of monster attacks. Each wave would have 10 monsters, for a total of 100. The next wave would appear automatically, whether they had cleared the last one or not. The last wave would be led by a boss. To pass, they had to kill every single monster. If they succeeded, their final score would be multiplied, giving them a huge boost. A horde of powerful monsters waited for them, ready for the trial to begin. The examiners watched closely. This test was designed to deal with summoners by attacking them directly. One of them wondered if Lin Moyu would finally panic, but the older examiner was calm. He didn't think this round would be any challenge for him at all. The final trial began, and Lin Moyu got straight to work. He called out, telling his warriors it was time to stretch their bones. Dark, powerful energy exploded from him, and from the ground, his skeleton army started to rise. He activated his skill, Soul Blaze. A wave of green energy washed over his entire army, empowering every single warrior. The skeletons roared, their eyes burning with a terrifying light. They were ready for battle. The examiners couldn't believe it. One was furious, yelling about how Lin Moyu had been hiding his true strength. Meanwhile, another student watching from the sidelines just yawned, completely unimpressed by the one-sided exam. Back in the control room, they decided there was no point in watching him anymore. His victory was so certain, it wasn't even exciting. They turned their attention to the other students. Elsewhere, a female mage unleashed a massive wave of fire. She was confident her powerful attacks would see her through the trial. Another student fought with everything he had, screaming as he battled the monsters. For him, this was a desperate fight for survival. Not everyone could handle the pressure. Some students had already forfeited, terrified by the endless waves of monsters. But one guy proudly told everyone that Lin Moyu was his boss, bragging that he'd once cleared a nightmare-level dungeon alone. The others thought he was lying. The trial was brutal, pushing everyone to their absolute limit. As the dust settled, it became clear. Only 5 students were left standing. While Lin Moyu was untouchable, the other top students were finally showing their true strength. One of them, Feng Xu, was a level 15 sacred swordsman. Turns out, He was holding back, waiting for the final rounds to rack up his score. At the same time, another student named Wang Zhao was pushed to his limit and went berserk. Red energy exploded around Wang Zhao as he roared. His berserk skill boosted his strength by a crazy amount, but it came at a price. Once it wore off, he'd be left completely helpless. Just like that, the fourth round of the exam was over. The final monster fell, and the results were tallied. The final scores appeared. Lin Moyu was in first place with over 3,600 points. The others weren't even close. Only 5 people had passed the fourth round. The other students couldn't believe it, wondering if anyone could possibly survive the fifth. The survivors took a moment to breathe. One of them grinned, ready for the fifth round to decide the real winner. Another was just relieved, thinking that making it into the top 5 was enough to get into the academy. The other students felt the same way, already dreaming of Xiajing Academy. But a voice cut through the chatter, likely one of the examiners. He warned them not to get too comfortable. If they didn't perform well in the fifth round, they'd still be eliminated. The moment had finally arrived. An announcement echoed through the space, telling everyone to listen carefully to the rules of the fifth and final round. The announcer explained that all of them would be sent to a special campaign space. There, they would face a non-stop attack from 100 monsters, including elites and even bosses. The faster they killed them, the stronger they would become. The announcer's voice laid out the rules. The test was split into 5 phases, with the score for each kill getting higher as they progressed. They were told to manage their pace and keep an eye on their score. The announcer urged them to use any hidden skills they had. The system then showed the breakdown. The first phase monsters were level 15 and worth 50 points, but by the fifth phase, they'd be fighting level 19 monsters for 800 points each. Lin Moyu was transported to the battlefield. The place was dark and broken, filled with a heavy feeling of death. He could tell some unimaginable battle had happened here. The first monsters appeared. The system identified them as level 15 furry beastmen. Lin Moyu wasn't impressed. They had no skills at all. One of the creatures let out a loud roar, and Lin Moyu guessed it was calling for its friends. He was a little surprised when his first attack didn't kill one instantly. It was tougher than it looked. He wasn't worried though. If one strike didn't work, he'd just use 2. He unleashed his corpse burst skill. A huge red explosion wiped out the entire group of monsters in a single moment. The examiner stared at the screen, stunned. Lin Moyu's score shot up by 500 points. He had just wiped out the entire first wave instantly. He stood over the fallen monsters, a simple plan forming in his mind. Since they roared to call their friends, he didn't even need to hunt them down. He could just stand right here and wait for them to come to him. But there was a problem. He noticed the monster's body was starting to disappear. Turns out, the corpses only lasted for about 10 seconds. That meant his plan to just sit and wait wouldn't work. He had to think of something else. So he gave a new order. He sent his 9 skeletons out to gather all the remaining monsters in one place. His warriors moved instantly, drawing the attention of every beast man on the field. Once they were all grouped together, he prepared his skill again. Corpse burst. Another massive explosion ripped through the battlefield, even bigger than the last one. The examiners couldn't see anything through the chaos. Then, the scoreboard updated. His score had jumped by over 4,000 points. They realized he had just wiped out all 100 monsters. One of the examiners just stared, completely stunned. He couldn't understand what he was seeing, and wondered if this kid even had a limit. With all the monsters gone, Lin Moyu looked over the empty battlefield. He wondered if he'd have to wait long for the next wave to appear, but he didn't have to wait at all. Suddenly, the sky lit up with fire. Without hesitating, he ordered his skeletons to form a shield above him. They moved instantly, blocking the fiery attack. Turns out, the next wave had already spawned. A group of level 16 Beastman mages were casting a huge fire rain spell. But Lin Moyu wasn't worried at all. A grin spread across his face. He was just happy. The Beastmen charged forward, a whole army of them. But Lin Moyu's skeletons met their charge head on, just as fierce. While his army fought, Lin Moyu just stood back, watching calmly. He let his skeletons do the work. His warriors tore through the Beastmen, cutting them down without any trouble. Once enough of them had fallen, Lin Moyu prepared his next move. He activated Corpse Explosion. Another huge blast rocked the entire field, wiping out everything in its path. The scoreboard updated again. His score shot up by another 6,000 points. The examiners were stunned. They couldn't believe he'd killed another 100 monsters instantly, with one of them just repeating how overpowered his attacks were. Another examiner wondered if this Necromancer class was even better than a legendary one, but the third was more skeptical. He argued that being strong at low levels doesn't guarantee anything later on. They decided to just keep watching. The air grew heavy with the feeling of death. Lin Moyu realized the test had just entered phase 2. Suddenly, new monsters emerged from the darkness. The system identified them as level 16 Beastman archers and warriors. There were at least 10 of them, and they looked way stronger than anything he'd faced so far. The examiners watched, completely amazed. One of them guessed that Lin Moyu must have awakened a special talent to be this powerful. The news spread. If he really had awakened a talent, it would be huge for all of humanity. Talents like that were incredibly rare, and some even wondered if he might awaken a second one someday. The scoreboard showed just how far ahead he was. Lin Moyu's score was over 34,000. The person in second place barely had 7,000. One of the examiners stared at the numbers in disbelief. He realized Lin Moyu must have wiped out another 200 monsters in a single moment. Miles away, in the Shenxia Empire's capital, someone Someone named Xia Jing was also watching. He wasn't impressed, saying that these early monsters were just free points for Lin Moyu. This was all happening inside the Trial Tower, one of the 3 great divine towers of the Empire. Far away from the tower, the entire city felt the shift. Even the rats in the street could tell something was terribly wrong. Suddenly, a furious voice boomed through the sky as a spear of dark energy shot through the air. A massive, golden hand appeared, trying to stop the attack, but a twisted voice just laughed, taunting that it was useless. A shield of light formed, but the dark spear shattered it instantly. The golden hand then grabbed the spear directly. The voice behind it was furious, asking if the attacker was looking to die, but the spear transformed into a hideous monster. It laughed, revealing that this was just a clone. The real targets were the children inside the Trial Tower. Without hesitation, the golden hand crushed the creature. Watching from a distance, a group of powerful figures understood what had just happened. The Abyss had launched a sneak attack. It was fast, well planned, and aimed directly at the children in the campaign space. The powerful figures watching from outside understood the situation. The Abyss had invaded the campaign space, corrupting its rules. Worse, the very ground the children were fighting on was from the Abyss, giving the invaders a huge advantage. One of the experts, Bai Yi Yuan, asked how long he had to fix the problem. The answer was grim, just 1 hour. Meanwhile, inside the tower, Lin Moyu was completely confused. All the monsters he was fighting had just vanished into thin air. He had no idea what was going on. That's when he ran into Xia Shui. She was just as lost as he was. She explained that examinees weren't supposed to be able to meet, which meant something was seriously wrong with the campaign space. She told him she was in the middle of a fight when her monsters just disappeared too. When she asked if he knew what was going on, Lin Moyu could only admit that he didn't. Across the broken space, other examinees were also sensing the strange energy in the air. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the sky above them all. He introduced himself as Bai Yi Yuan. The examinees below gasped. They couldn't believe it. God Bai was actually here. The people watching from the outside were horrified. For God Bai to appear himself, it could only mean that something had gone terribly, terribly wrong. Bai Yi Yuan's voice boomed across the broken space. He announced that demons from the Abyss had invaded, and their target was every single one of the examinees. He told them they were trying to fix the rules, but it would take an hour. Xia Shui stared in disbelief, the words hitting her hard. Bai Yi Yuan continued, telling them that for the next hour, they had to protect themselves. He urged them to stay united, believing that together they could stand against the power of the Abyss. Instead of fear, a fire lit up in one of the examinees. He roared out a challenge to the heavens, declaring that the people of Shenxia would not be afraid to die fighting. Another warrior raised his sword, his voice joining the first. The cry for battle began to echo through the space. Soon, everyone was shouting it. The fear was replaced by a powerful resolve. They would not go down without a fight. While the others were caught up in the moment, Lin Moyu was thinking. He knew the weakest monsters from the Abyss were level 70. If God Bai said they could fight back, it had to mean the invading power was somehow limited. Back on the outside, the experts understood the horrifying truth. This wasn't a random attack. The Abyss was aiming for the exam itself, trying to wipe out their most promising young talents. They worried this could become a yearly nightmare. One of the elders shut down the panicked chatter. He ordered everyone to calm down and tell the people outside to believe in God Bai. He reminded them all to have faith. The sky turned blood red. One of the examinees pointed up, shouting that the Abyss blood moon had appeared. He warned everyone to get ready. The real attack was about to begin. The knights formed a line, ready to defend their teammates to the death. But a dark voice echoed from the shadows, mocking their courage. It promised them that their defiance was pointless. They were all going to die. The voice laughed, saying that an hour was more than enough time to slaughter every single one. The voice laughed, saying that an hour was more than enough time to slaughter every single one of them. Lin Moyu and the others just listened, their faces grim. That's when the first monster appeared. The system identified it as a level 19 Beastman warrior, corrupted by the Abyss. One of the girls suddenly remembered something important. The campaign space had a level limit. The highest was level 19. Realizing this, she wondered why they were so afraid. With so many of them, they should be able to handle it. But that hope died instantly. A massive horde of monsters swarmed into view, far more than anyone could have imagined. And worse, they were all enhanced elites. A girl grabbed Lin Moyu's arm, her face filled with fear as she asked what they were going to do. He just looked ahead calmly. He admitted it was a problem, but nothing they couldn't handle. He knew what that meant. Enhanced elites were the kind of monsters you'd find in a nightmare dungeon. This was going to be a serious fight. He realized these monsters had been mutated by the Abyss, but instead of fear, he felt curiosity. He just wanted to know if they still gave experience points. The dark voice from the Abyss echoed across the field, taunting them. It reminded them of the White God's words, twisting them into a promise of their own doom. The warriors were paralyzed with fear. One of them admitted he couldn't even lift his blade. They knew they couldn't win. But even so, some of them readied their weapons. They weren't going down without a fight. While everyone else was frozen, Lin Moyu started walking forward. He was heading straight for the horde. One of the girls screamed at him, calling him a fool. She warned him there were over 100 enhanced elites over there. She begged him to come back, but he didn't even turn around. He didn't care if she followed him or not. The others just watched in disbelief, wondering what he was thinking. He was actually walking right towards them. That's when a system window appeared above his head. He was a level 16 necromancer. Skeletons began to crawl out of the ground around him. The others stared, completely confused. They had never heard of a necromancer before and wondered if they should fight alongside him. Seeing him step up, some of the others found their courage again. One of the women declared that they wouldn't run from battle, even if it meant death. The dark voice laughed. It seemed amused that someone finally wanted to die. It called him brave and offered him a deal. Instead of being killed, he could become the Demon King's slave. The voice told him to consider its offer. Lin Moyu just stood there, completely unfazed. It promised to open a special gate just for him. Turns out, the voice even knew about his skills, telling him the perfect distance to use corpse explosion. The others watched him walk, then suddenly stop. They wondered why he chose that spot, thinking it was close enough. That's when he raised his hand, and strange blue flames appeared. Skeletons began to claw their way out of the ground, one after another. A system window popped up, showing he had summoned 100 skeleton warriors. The others couldn't believe it. They had never seen anything like this before. The skeletons charged forward with incredible speed. One of the girls was shocked, realizing they were faster than a player who focused only on agility. They slammed into the monsters with a skill called Rage Strike. The skeletons tore through the beastmen, but the monsters were tough. Even after taking direct hits, some of them were still standing. Lin Moyu quickly figured it out. These monsters had around 3,000 strength. This was going to be a real fight. He knew this was just the beginning. To survive, he had to get stronger. A system alert confirmed a kill, and more importantly, that these monsters gave experience. That was all he needed to know. With plenty of fallen monsters on the field, he decided it was time to use a new skill. He gathered energy in his hand, preparing for a corpse explosion. He unleashed the skill, and the bodies of the dead beastmen began to glow. The others had no idea what was happening. One of them yelled out in confusion as the battlefield lit up. A chain reaction of explosions tore through the entire monster army. When the smoke cleared, there was nothing left. The other candidates stared in disbelief, wondering what kind of skill could be so powerful. The reactions were mixed. One of the guys was furious, jealous of Lin Moyu's power, but the others were just relieved, realizing they were saved. But someone else was watching. A dark voice echoed from the shadows, calling his power impossible and promising to crush him. The battlefield was a mess of smoke and red energy. The monster army had been completely wiped out, but the voice from the shadows just laughed. It mocked them, promising that they would all die as a fresh wave of monsters appeared. Lin Moyu's eyes narrowed. He had found him. Without hesitation, his skeleton army charged forward to meet the new threat. The shadowy figure started to panic. It called Lin Moyu a lunatic, demanding to know what he was planning. Lin Moyu didn't answer. He just unleashed another corpse explosion. But this time, the explosion was followed by a blast of blue fire. The enemy screamed in pain, swearing that it would kill him. The shadowy figure couldn't believe it. It shrieked, wondering what kind of skill could burn its very soul. It was impossible that someone like Lin Moyu could even exist. The massive shadowy creature stomped down hard, reeling from the soul fire. Lin Moyu just stood there, looking up at the monster. He told it this was the price for invading their world. Far away, powerful figures watching the exam were stunned by the sudden explosion of power. They had no idea what was happening inside. One of the elders noticed something strange. He realized the power of the abyss inside the exam space was actually getting weaker. He wondered if everyone inside was dead, but then corrected himself. He could still feel people in there. The abyss aura was just weakening them. Another expert explained the problem. The abyss demon was messing with the rules of the space, so even they couldn't get inside to help. He couldn't believe a bunch of level 15 and 16 kids could possibly be hurting it. Back in the exam space, the demon was losing its mind. It screamed for its minions to kill the one responsible for its pain. The monsters immediately swarmed forward. One of the students found himself face to face with a beast, completely paralyzed by fear. Suddenly, a system window popped up right in front of Lin Moyu. His corpse explosion skill had leveled up just from being used. He realized that with his special talent, the explosion's reach would now be a massive 20 meters. Just then, the entire horde of monsters charged straight at him. He clenched his fist, a small smile on his face. The timing couldn't have been better. Pillar of golden light surrounded Lin Moyu. He had leveled up. The other students watched in disbelief, realizing he was actually using this disaster to get stronger. They were just thankful he was there. Otherwise, they all would have been done for. Lin Moyu just looked up calmly. He told the demon it wasn't getting away. The giant face of the demon appeared in the sky. It recognized Lin Moyu and promised that when he eventually came to the abyss, it would be waiting for him. But Lin Moyu wasn't interested in threats. He just activated his skill one last time. A massive explosion went off, wiping the demon's presence from the sky. The red sky began to shatter like glass. The battle space was returning to normal. The surviving students looked around, barely daring to hope, wondering if they had actually won. A message appeared for everyone to see. The abyss consciousness had been completely destroyed. Outside the exam, the elders watched as the space stabilized. One of them noted that it was being restored. The other immediately asked about the state of the kids inside. The report came back quickly. The kids were safe and sound, with not a single casualty. This was completely different from what they expected. To be safe, they decided to teleport the students out immediately, and then go back to figure out what had happened. A girl rushed over to Lin Moyu, asking if he was alright. He just told her he was fine. Suddenly, a giant hologram of an official appeared. He announced that the abyss was gone, and the space was back to normal. The students were being sent back to their testing sites to wait for the final results. As they were teleported back to the testing grounds, the girl thought about how they wouldn't have stood a chance without Lin Moyu. Elsewhere, the officials were already discussing the results. One of them explained that top academies don't just look at points. A student needed an excellent evaluation, which came directly from the highest ranking officials in the empire. The students were all thinking about what happened. One of them was already looking forward to seeing what kind of evaluation he'd receive. The officials were reviewing the battle data. One of them watched the recording, his eyes fixed on a single figure. They identified him as a Necromancer, a brand new class. They were blown away by how he single-handedly turned the tide. His calmness and decisiveness showed he already had the potential to be a top-tier expert, and he had to have an incredible talent. One official mentioned this year's evaluations were tough. Another argued that anyone who ran was a coward who couldn't be trusted on a real battlefield. But on one thing, they all agreed. Lin Moyu's evaluation was, without a doubt, excellent. Suddenly, a bright blue light appeared in the main square. The results flashed across a massive screen. Lin Moyu had taken first place with an excellent evaluation. One of the officials, Old Lu, threw his hands in the air, ecstatic. His friend congratulated him, joking that he'd be bragging about this for the next 20 years. A girl walked up to Lin Moyu, congratulating him on getting the top score in the province. He just gave her a simple thank you. She was surprised to see him actually smiling. She told him he looked good when he smiled and wondered why he was always so serious. The officials looked back at the leaderboard. The other top students also had excellent evaluations, but then they saw the 5th place student, Wang Zihao. His evaluation was poor. Wang Zihao stared in disbelief. His evaluation was poor? He knew what this meant. No top academy in the empire would ever accept him now. He completely lost it. He started screaming that he didn't accept the results, demanding to know why they would give him a poor evaluation without any proof. He just kept yelling that it wasn't fair. But then a system announcement appeared right above him. It stated that Wang Zihao had violated the rules of the exam and was being expelled. A beam of light shot down and he was gone. An official announced that for the combat class, the top scorer of the province was Lin Moyu. The crowd of students below erupted in cheers, celebrating his victory. But before they could celebrate for long, an official called for silence. He said an imperial order had arrived concerning Lin Moyu. The students were confused. They thought being the provincial top scorer was the final result. The real announcement was far bigger. Lin Moyu wasn't just the provincial winner. He was this year's national top scorer. The official, Old Lu, stared in absolute disbelief, struggling to process what he just heard. He was so overjoyed, he looked like he was floating up to heaven. His friend laughed, telling him to take it easy and that he could brag about this moment for the rest of his life. The entire crowd was ecstatic. Their province had produced a national champion. Everyone was shouting about how amazing Lin Moyu was, with one person vowing to send their kid to his high school. A few of the other students approached Lin Moyu directly. They congratulated him, and one of them thanked him, admitting that without his help, they would have been in serious trouble. He just said it was nothing. They asked if he was planning to go to the academy and invited him to get a meal together when they got there. Lin Moyu simply agreed. His classmates were stunned. One of them realized that in the 3 years they'd known him, he'd probably spoken less than 30 sentences to them in total. The other students couldn't help but laugh. It was just so rare to hear him speak. Later, back at his home, Lin Moyu sat alone. He looked at the pictures of his family, telling them he had become the national top scorer and would be going to the academy soon. Just then, there was a knock at the door. He opened it and was surprised to see his principal, Old Lu. But he wasn't alone. The man with him had an incredibly powerful and dark presence. The aura was so intense, it felt like it was crushing him, making it hard to even breathe. The powerful man looked down at him, impressed. He noted that Lin Moyu's reaction was good. Lin Moyu bowed his head respectfully. Aishin explained he was there to discuss the Xiajing Academy. He was impressed by Lin Moyu's calm reaction, calling him a promising student. The principal chimed in, explaining that Moyu's sister had gone to the academy last year, so he'd been living by himself ever since. Bai Shen was amazed. For both siblings, to get into Xiajing Academy was remarkable, but to find a genius like Moyu was even rarer. Bai Shen looked at the skeleton warrior's stats, shocked that all 4 attributes were at 50. He demanded to know how that was possible. Lin Moyu realized that others couldn't see the true boosted stats of his summons. The principal leaned forward and asked what talent Moyu had awakened. Lin Moyu simply said his talent was amplification, which made all his skills stronger. Bai Shen nodded, saying that made sense. He explained he had 2 things to discuss. First was the reward from the academy, and second was an invitation to a trial in 2 days. Lin Moyu asked what kind of trial it was. Bai Shen told him it was an internal event just for academy students, but he couldn't share the details unless Moyu agreed to join. Lin Moyu considered the offer. He knew the choice was his to make. The secrecy made him suspicious. This trial was clearly not a normal one. Bai Shen explained that this trial was a rare chance, something Moyu shouldn't even have access to. Without a second of hesitation, Lin Moyu said he'd join. Bai Shen laughed, pleased with the answer. He said it was time to show Moyu his rewards, which were pretty substantial for a national champion. The first prize was a card loaded with points, which he explained were more valuable than gold inside the academy. The second reward was even better. 2 skill scrolls, 1 primary and 1 intermediate. But the third reward was special, just for him. It was a pass to enter the Divine Summons Tower 1 time. Bai Shen stressed how valuable this was, telling Moyu to prepare carefully before going in. Lin Moyu nodded. He understood that if Bai Shen was making such a big deal out of it, this tower was incredibly important. With that settled, Bai Shen told him to get his things. They were leaving for Xiajing Academy. Right away, a pillar of light shot up from the city, carrying them into the night sky. And just like that, they had arrived. Before them stood the massive, imposing structure of Xiajing Academy. Bai Shen explained that the gate wasn't just an entrance. It was a powerful weapon. Even top-tier experts would pay a huge price if they tried to force their way in. With that, they headed inside. They arrived at the residential area. Bai Shen told Mo Yu to rest up, saying someone would come for him in the morning. After he left, another student stared in disbelief. He couldn't understand how this new kid could be so calm around someone as important as Lord Bai Shen. The student walked up to him, confirming he was Lin Mo Yu. He then asked where he wanted to stay. He laid out the options. There was everything from a basic 4-person room to a massive private villa. The price difference was huge, and everything was paid for in points. The student gave him some friendly advice. He knew Mo Yu had a lot of points from the exam, but he urged him to save them. He said there were tons of things he'd need points for later, so a 4-person room was the smart choice. But Lin Mo Yu just cut him off, saying he wanted a single-room dormitory. The student was stunned. He asked if Mo Yu was sure, thinking to himself that he'd regret this choice later on. They went to the single room. The student asked for Mo Yu's identity card to complete the registration, but when he swiped it, he froze. The number on the screen was massive. He couldn't believe how many points Mo Yu had. He finally understood. It was the reward for being the national top scorer. The student was in awe, admitting that in the 5 years he'd been at the academy, he'd only earned 10,000 points total. Lin Mo Yu had more than 10 times that amount. The student told him the room was officially his now. He reminded Mo Yu to get a communication device the next day and then left him to rest. Looking out the window, Mo Yu could see flashes of light all over the campus. Everyone was already training hard. He realized that in a place like this, leveling up would be much faster than before. The next day, a system notification popped up. His meditation session was over. Suddenly, 2 people were in his room. A woman with white hair teased him, asking if he even recognized her. He just calmly said he did. Without waiting for an answer, she grabbed his hand and started pulling him out the door. She insisted on taking him to breakfast and showing him around the academy. They made their way to the academy cafeteria. When they got to the counter, the woman saw him trying to pay. She stopped him, asking why he was using points. She explained that places that accept coins don't take points. Lin Mo Yu told her he only had points. She sighed and offered to pay, telling him not to waste his points since they were so hard to earn. But as the payment went through, she froze. His point balance on the screen was massive. She couldn't believe her eyes. She couldn't believe it. She demanded to know how he got so many points. She started lecturing him, telling him to never use points where he could use coins. She warned him to use them wisely, even if he had a lot. He handed her something. Her eyes lit up when she saw the beautiful red crystal. She recognized it immediately as the core crystal of the Goblin King. She asked if he understood how valuable it was, explaining it was a boss drop worth a fortune. When he just said yes, she was completely taken aback. She happily accepted the gift, saying she wouldn't be polite about it. After that, she led him to the next part of the campus. They arrived at the academic affairs office, and she told him his enrollment was officially complete. But Lin Mo Yu had something else on his mind. He asked why he couldn't find any information about his sister, Lin Mohan. The system showed her profile was completely blank. His guide explained it could mean a few things. She might be on a secret mission for the academy, or she could have joined a more specialized college. She told him not to worry, that his sister would be fine. After he thanked her, she got serious. She explained that showing him around wasn't the only reason she was there. She had a task for him. The guide announced she'd brought the national top scorer. A woman stepped forward and introduced herself as Zhang Tao Tao, a level 23 elf knight. Lin Mo Yu shook her hand and replied that he was a level 17 necromancer. A man sitting nearby slammed his staff down. He was furious, questioning why they would bring in someone who was only level 17. He complained that they couldn't just bring any random person along. The woman who brought Mo Yu there immediately stepped in. She yelled at the man, Ling Zhen, telling him to watch his mouth. She reminded him that Mo Yu was the national top scorer. Ling Zhen just smirked. He said that compared to their team, being the national top scorer meant nothing. He called all the previous ones trash. Then he turned to Lin Mo Yu. He acknowledged that Mo Yu was introduced by Lord Bai Shen, but warned him not to think that connection gave him any special privileges. He told Mo Yu to keep his mouth shut and not drag the team down. If he did, Ling Zhen promised to eliminate him without a second thought, boasting that even their youngest member could take him out easily. That last comment made someone else snap. A young man with fiery eyes glared at Ling Zhen, demanding to know what he just said. Before a fight could start, Tao Tao moved. She threw up a green shield, blocking the young man's path and yelling at Ling Zhen to stop. Ling Zhen just glared back. He told Tao Tao he was already being considerate just for her. With the situation under control, Tao Tao turned to Lin Mo Yu. She told him to meet them there at 9 the next morning, saying she would explain the trial. Then, Mo Yu just calmly agreed. With the argument settled, the woman smiled and told Lin Mo Yu it was time to go. They needed to buy some things and get ready for the trial. As they left, Tao Tao confronted Ling Zhen. She warned him not to bring personal feelings into the trial, especially since Mo Yu was introduced by Lord Bai Shen. Ling Zhen replied that he just wanted to see the person who took his brother's spot on the team. Tao Tao argued that being the national top scorer meant Mo Yu had to be extraordinary, and that his unique class was a good sign. Ling Zhen just scoffed, saying that new classes appear every year and most of them are trash. He was sure this necromancer was no different. Meanwhile, the guide told Lin Moyu not to worry about Ling Zhen, calling him crazy. She led him to a shop to buy supplies for the trial. At the counter, she ordered 10 healing potions, 10 mana potions, and a communication device. The device on his wrist lit up, identifying his profile. The guide smiled to herself, thinking that now she could bother him anytime she wanted. She suggested they become friends on the system, and he calmly agreed. A moment later, the connection was confirmed. With that done, she waved goodbye, telling him she'd see him at the trial tomorrow. He just nodded as she left. Alone in his room, Lin Moyu knew he needed to prepare more for this trial. He pulled out a primary skill scroll and decided to use it right away. The scroll worked. A system window popped up, confirming he'd learned a new skill, Slow Curse. It could reduce the speed of all enemies in a huge area by half, and it lasted for a full 10 minutes. But thanks to his unique talent, the skill was even stronger. The range was massive. The slowing effect was crippling, and it would last long enough to control any fight. This was another incredible weapon in his arsenal. He thought about his abilities. He now had summoning skills, attack skills, and curse skills. Each one was powerful and essential for his survival, and he knew this was just the beginning. He was already thinking about what other kinds of skills he could learn in the future. The next morning, it was time for the trial. The team gathered together. Tao Tao gave them a warning not to wander off once they teleported. Ling Zhen just looked over at Lin Moyu and told him not to slow them down. Another member agreed, telling Moyu to just not drag them down. Tao Tao then told everyone to get serious and introduce their classes. A woman with glasses went first, stating she was Miao Yu, a level 20 elf elder. Next was Duan Gao, a level 20 diviner. Then Ling Zhen spoke up. He was a level 21 warlock. Lin Moyu introduced himself as a level 17 necromancer. The last member, Ning Yuyi, finished by saying she was a level 19 shadow assassin. With the introductions done, Tao Tao gave them a final warning. She told them they had to work together or she wouldn't hold back. Ning Yuyi quickly promised they wouldn't cause any trouble. A moment later, a huge magic circle appeared beneath them. The trial was about to begin. They were transported to a dark, terrifying place. In front of them was a giant tower held down by massive chains. Someone recognized it as the Divine Xia Tower. They were all stunned. The tower wasn't on the ground. It was floating in the sky. It seemed like the tower itself was what had brought them here. But just as quickly as they arrived, they were teleported again. This time, they found themselves on a beautiful green island called Mermaid Island. Not far from where they landed, they found a huge, glowing green rock. Tao Tao recognized it as a mission stone and told everyone to touch it. The mission details appeared. They had to get an item called a Mermaid's Tear, but the rules were tough. The tear only dropped on Nightmare difficulty, and only the first 3 teams to clear the dungeon would get one. This was going to be a race. The mission details were clear. The dungeon was right in the center of Mermaid Island. Lin Moyu wondered if this was just a simple dungeon run, or if the Mermaid's Tear had some kind of special power. Ning Yuyi was surprised by the location. She turned to Tao Tao and asked her to share what she knew, since she had the most experience with these kinds of trials. Tao Tao explained that the Mermaid's Tear was used to craft incredibly powerful equipment. The thing is, only 3 tears dropped each year, and the island wasn't even in their empire's territory. That meant teams from other countries were also here, hunting for the exact same thing. Turns out, their academy alone had sent 10 teams. Theirs was Team 2. This wasn't just a friendly trial. It was a full-blown international competition. Ning Yuyi looked worried. She asked what would happen if they ran into another country's team. Tao Tao told her that in the past, teams would just try to block the dungeon entrance to keep others out. But then she got serious. She warned them not to let their guard down, because people had died in these trials before. If a real fight broke out, she told them their lives were the most important thing. Lin Moyu just calmly told Ning Yuyi not to worry. He was confident they wouldn't run into that kind of trouble. With the warnings given, it was time to move. The team leader called out to their support mage, who immediately started casting buffs, enhancing everyone's strength, defense, and speed. They were ready to enter Mermaid Island. The buffs hit, boosting his attributes by 50% and skill power by 20%. Lin Moyu wasn't impressed though. He knew the support mage was good, but compared to his own talent, the effect was almost nothing. So he decided to summon something himself. A huge skeleton warrior appeared behind him, wrapped in shadows. He wondered if the support mage's buffs would even work on it. The rest of the team was shocked to see an undead summon. The girl with pink hair thought it was cute, not scary at all. She asked the support mage to give it a buff, and Lin Moyu politely asked for his help too. The mage reluctantly agreed to try. The support mage tried to cast his spell, but it just fizzled out. He was stunned, saying his skills wouldn't work on the creature. He realized Lin Moyu's talent was probably just overwriting his own. Watching from the side, Ling Zhen sneered, saying the summon was as useless as its master. Lin Moyu didn't react. He just stood there, calmly, with his skeleton warrior, ignoring them. Furious at being shown up, Ling Zhen stepped forward. He was done talking and wanted to fight. Before things could get any worse, one of their teammates jumped between them. She told them to fight later and focus on the trial first. Turns out, Ling Zhen was all talk. Just the sight of Lin Moyu's summon sent a deathly chill through his body, making him freeze up completely. With the argument settled, the trial officially began, and the team leader yelled for everyone to get moving and head onto the island. The leader laid out the plan. Their main target was the mermaid dungeon, and she stressed that they needed to move fast and avoid fighting monsters if they could. They hadn't gone far into the jungle when they spotted their first monster. A huge merfolk was resting by the water's edge. The creature burst from the water, ready to attack. A system window appeared, identifying it as a level 19 merfolk soldier. Without waiting for orders, Ling Zhen charged straight at the monster, eager to prove himself. The other teammates were already fighting. One of them, a fast warrior, dodged a blast of fire from a monster. Captain Jiang Taidao finished off the merfolk soldier with one clean strike. The system confirmed the kill, rewarding the team with experience and a fish scale. Ling Zhen unleashed a massive wave of fire, clearing out his own share of the monsters. But it wasn't enough. The team leader realized they were moving too slowly. Level 21 monsters were now appearing, and at this rate, it would take hours to reach their goal. She decided they had to stop clearing every monster and just charge through. The support mage used a windbind spell to trap a group of monsters, clearing a path. But 20 minutes later, they were facing an even bigger army. She looked back at the horde of monsters. They were still falling behind. One of the girls asked if they could just force their way through. The team leader knew it was hopeless. There were too many monsters, and they were now level 22, so high that her control skills might fail completely. The team was stuck. Charging forward was suicide, and clearing the path would take too long. That's when Lin Moyu stepped forward and calmly offered to handle it himself. Ling Zhen sneered at Lin Moyu, questioning what a level 17 newbie who hadn't done anything could possibly do. He called him useless and told him to keep hiding behind women, but another teammate immediately stepped in, telling Ling to shut his foul mouth. Ignoring the argument, the team leader turned to Lin Moyu and asked for his plan. He told her he would use the skeleton warrior to draw the monster's attention. A look of hope crossed her face. She realized his summon was their best shot. She told him it was all up to him now. The skeleton warrior shot forward like a blur, its movements shockingly fast. It worked perfectly. The summon drew the entire horde of monsters to one side, clearing a path. The team leader yelled for everyone to go. They made it to the other side. A system notification popped up, saying the skeleton warrior had been recalled. The team leader turned to Lin Moyu and told him they owed him for that. Ling Zhen immediately started complaining, wondering why they didn't just do that from the start. The masked woman cut him off, telling him to quit talking nonsense and go up himself if he was so capable. Ling Zhen said it was all thanks to the summon, suggesting that maybe Lin Moyu himself was just trash. Lin Moyu looked at him coldly and gave him one last warning. Just then, another teammate's face filled with terror. She screamed for them to run. The warning came too late. From the trees above, a whole new group of enemies dropped down, cutting off their escape. Turns out, it was a team from another country. Their leader was a Shikigami summoner, a special class unique to their nation. He called forth a massive, powerful spirit. People said that class could summon creatures that were basically ancient gods. The enemy leader laughed, telling them the dungeon belonged to his country now. He ordered his team to hold them back, then used a stone to teleport away, leaving them trapped. It was a dirty move. The Shikigami summoner was a legendary class, and now hundreds of merfolk monsters were gathered in one place, blocking their path completely. With no other options, the team leader turned to Lin Moyu, asking if he could help, but he was already one step ahead. One of his summons was pulling a group of monsters away from the main pack. Then, Lin Moyu summoned a second creature. The team leader was stunned. He had two summons. She told him to use them to lure the rest of the monsters away, but warned him not to use any attacks that would steal her experience. The second summon shot forward, drawing the remaining monsters. One of the guys on the team was ecstatic, yelling that he'd buy Lin Moyu drinks when the trial was over. Then, a third skeleton warrior appeared out of nowhere. The team couldn't believe it. With another powerful summon on their side, they felt confident they could push back against the enemy. The other members were incredibly grateful, even promising to run dungeons with him again. But Ling Zhen just scoffed, annoyed that Lin Moyu was getting all the attention. Meanwhile, the enemy team was waiting up ahead. One of them spotted Lin Moyu's group approaching and was completely stunned. He was sure the monsters would have held them back for hours. Realizing his plan had failed, he quickly ordered his archers to get ready. He was determined to stop them right there. A moment later, a storm of arrows filled the air. They were under attack. The team's mages reacted instantly, throwing up protective shields to block the attack. The fight had begun. The team captain looked over at Lin Moyu and his skeleton warrior. She told him that with him by their side, she wasn't afraid at all. But Ling Zhen didn't share her confidence. He told the captain their team was too weak and that they needed a better mage. Right in the middle of the battle, he announced he wanted to quit and join another team. Ling Zhen finally gave the captain an ultimatum. Either Lin Moyu goes, or he does. The other teammates immediately told him he was going too far. They reminded him that without Lin Moyu, they wouldn't have even survived this long. The captain stared at Ling Zhen, clearly fed up with his attitude. Through it all, Lin Moyu just stood there, completely unfazed by the argument. Ling Zhen was sure he had them cornered. He thought the captain would have to keep him, since he was their main damage dealer. He was convinced this was the perfect way to finally get Lin Moyu kicked out. But she didn't even hesitate. The captain looked right at Ling Zhen and told him that if that's how he felt, then he should be the one to lead the team. Ling Zhen was completely stunned. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He yelled at the captain, telling her that if he left, they would fail the trial. He asked if she was really willing to throw away their chance to get into the seminary, but the captain was firm. She told him that as an elven knight, she had her own beliefs. She couldn't give in to his demands. Ling Zhen sneered, telling her she'd regret this. A second later, a notification popped up. He had officially left the party. With Ling Zhen gone, the captain turned to Lin Moyu and said it was time to enter the dungeon. Elsewhere, another group of adventurers was having the same idea. A third group watched from a distance. The woman suggested they should follow the others inside. As they walked, and the captain tried to reassure the others. She said that with her there, they could always retreat if things got too dangerous, and she wondered aloud why anyone would ever doubt Lin Moyu. When they finally reached the dungeon entrance, they found it was being blocked. 2 guards stood in their way, yelling at them to get lost. They weren't letting anyone through. Just then, other adventurers recognized Lin Moyu. They yelled out that they wouldn't let him be bullied and charged forward to help. The man blocking the dungeon entrance just smirked. He thought they were all fools, just rushing to their deaths. He summoned a massive, shadowy creature that roared down at the adventurers. The captain raised her shield to defend against the attack, but Lin Moyu was already one step ahead, gathering a swirl of blue energy in his hands. From that energy, a spectral warrior shot forward, moving with incredible speed. Everyone was stunned. They couldn't believe Lin Moyu could summon so many creatures. His skeletons formed a wall, blocking every single attack. The enemy team watched in disbelief, calling his summons monstrous. They realized their attacks were completely useless, and Lin Moyu's group was about to get past them. The leader screamed at his team. They had to stop them, no matter what. With the path clear, Lin Moyu stepped up to the dungeon entrance. He didn't hesitate, choosing the hardest difficulty available, nightmare level. The other team was thrown back by the force of the portal opening. They had failed completely. The leader could only watch, his face twisted with anger. There was nothing he could do, and just like that, they were inside. The air was different here, thick and heavy. The team captain looked over at him, her trust placed entirely in the young necromancer. One of the women tried to reassure the captain, telling her that his skeletons were incredibly powerful. The captain agreed, promising to do her best to block any monsters that got through. The team's healer, Meow, was told to focus on support and blessings. Just as she agreed, a notification popped up. One of the elite monsters had already been killed. She stared in shock. She hadn't even cast a single spell, but she was already getting experience points. His skeletons were fighting on a whole other level. The system confirmed it. An enhanced elite monster, taken down in a single hit. The team was speechless. Lin Moyu simply ordered his skeletons to keep searching. The captain couldn't believe it. She knew that even with a perfect team, a fight like that should have taken at least a couple of minutes. One of the women wasn't shocked at all. She was thrilled. She told everyone she knew Moyu's skeletons were amazing and urged them to hurry along, but the others were still trying to make sense of what was happening. The captain just told them to stop thinking and follow. Up ahead, the skeleton warriors were already tearing through the dungeon, using powerful skills to clear out everything in their path. The team just stood back and watched. The captain admitted it was the most relaxed she'd ever been in a dungeon. The others agreed. There was nothing for them to do. Soon, they reached a massive cavern. It looked like a dead end, but then one of them pointed down into the darkness below. It was the boss. The boss was a level 23 serpent, and its stats were terrifying. They were even higher than the Goblin Kings. Lin Moyu knew his own skeletons were weaker than this thing. The captain offered to draw the monster's attention, but Lin Moyu told her it wasn't necessary. His skeletons were already charging down the cliff face to meet the enemy head on. The serpent didn't waste any time. It coiled its massive body and unleashed a powerful lash attack. The creature was incredibly fast, dodging the skeletons with ease. The team started to panic, wondering how they could possibly fight something so agile. But Lin Moyu wasn't worried at all. He just raised his hand and calmly cast a slow curse. A moment later, glowing red chains wrapped around the serpent. Its lightning-fast movements slowed to a crawl. The team captain realized it was a curse-type skill. With the serpent now trapped, the skeleton warriors closed in for the attack. She stared at Lin Moyu, completely amazed. He had powerful summons and now a curse skill. She couldn't help but wonder what else a necromancer could do. With the serpent slowed, the skeletons moved in. The red chains tightened around the creature as they began to tear it apart. The serpent tried one last desperate move, spitting a cloud of venom. But Lin Moyu wasn't worried. His skeletons were undead. Poison was useless against them. One of the skeletons raised its sword, and a massive beam of energy shot down from the sky. It went straight through the serpent's head. The huge creature collapsed, its body dissolving into dust. The team captain stared, barely able to process what just happened. She asked if it was really over. The system answered for him, showing that they'd killed the level 23 boss and even got some new armor. The team was still processing what happened. One of them couldn't believe how much experience she'd gotten for doing nothing. The captain told everyone to stop standing around and follow Lin Moyu. She explained that the serpent was just a warm-up. The real boss, the queen of the mer people, was next. They followed him deeper into the cave. As they walked, a strong fishy smell filled the air. They reached the edge of a huge cavern. Down below, they saw an incredible building, like a palace at the bottom of the sea. The palace was heavily guarded. Dozens of mer people soldiers patrolled the entrance, all armed with tridents. The team captain did a quick count and was horrified. She realized there were 60 patrols, which meant 180 mer people in total. And they weren't just normal monsters. They were all enhanced elites. While the team was panicking, Lin Moyu just smiled. For him, more monsters just meant more experience. Before anyone could say another word, Lin Moyu sent his skeletons charging forward, and the captain yelled out, thinking he was being way too reckless. A system window confirmed just how how strong they were. The elite mer soldiers had incredible stats and a special stunning attack. These things were no joke. The skeletons didn't just fight. They completely tore through the mer people soldiers. They used powerful skills, stunning and striking down enemies left and right. The team captain panicked, yelling that more patrols were rushing over. But Lin Moyu just held up a glowing red orb and calmly told everyone to cover their ears. A moment later, a huge blast wiped out everything. The system flooded with notifications, showing they had killed dozens of elite mer soldiers all at once. The team just stared, completely stunned. The experience notifications just kept popping up. The team couldn't believe what they were seeing. One of them wondered out loud what kind of talent could be so powerful, admitting they'd never seen anything like it. With all the guards defeated, the massive palace door began to swing open. Inside, the queen of the mer people appeared. The system confirmed she was a boss-level monster with terrifyingly high stats and a bunch of special talents. As soon as they saw her, some of the team members were completely captivated. They just stared, mesmerized by her beauty. But Lin Moyu knew something was wrong. Her beauty wasn't natural. It was a powerful enchantment spell, and his team was already falling for it. While the rest of the team was still dazed, Lin Moyu stood perfectly clear-headed. One of the women snapped out of it, completely confused about what had just happened to her. The team captain explained that the queen's enchantment magic had trapped them all. She admitted that if Lin Moyu hadn't been there, the entire party would have been wiped out. With the team safe for now, the queen of the mer people turned her attention to the skeletons and charged forward. Her eyes glowed red as she let out a terrifying shriek, unleashing one of her powerful skills. One of the teammates watched from the side, thinking about how this fight should have been almost impossible. But with Lin Moyu there, everything felt different. The queen's power was immense, filling the entire room. The teammate worried that even Lin Moyu's skeletons wouldn't be able to withstand her attacks. It felt like a pack of wolves foolishly trying to attack a lion. On paper, it seemed like they had no chance at all. Done waiting, the queen lunged forward, her weapon glowing with power, ready to strike. The queen's attack was devastating. She slammed her weapon down, and the skeleton warrior was hit with incredible force. The skeleton shattered into pieces. A system message confirmed it was destroyed. The team captain told everyone to get ready. She figured once the skeletons were gone, it would be their turn to fight. But Lin Moyu just calmly told her there was no need. He raised his hand and cast a slowing curse. Suddenly, glowing red chains wrapped around the queen, locking her in place. She wasn't going down without a fight. She unleashed a massive wave of energy, trying to break free. The attack washed over everything, a huge torrent of power. The skeletons took the full force of the blast. The system announced that 2 more had been destroyed. Seeing the skeletons fall, the captain was sure they couldn't hold on much longer. She told Lin Moyu to pull them back, getting ready to charge in herself. But Lin Moyu just smiled. He calmly told his soldiers to come out and play. Green energy erupted from the ground as he summoned the rest of his army. Suddenly, the entire chamber was filled with them. An army of skeleton warriors rose from the mist, numbers stretching as far as the eye could see. The team was speechless. They couldn't believe he had this many summons and was just holding back the whole time. The captain admitted that he had once again completely surpassed her expectations. The skeletons swarmed the queen, a black tide of death. She fought back wildly, but she was completely surrounded. In a final, desperate move, the queen unleashed a massive wave of energy called the Tears of the Queen. One of the women panicked, worried that the boss's ability was too strong. Lin Moyu just told her not to worry. He explained that his stats were high enough to resist it, and his skeletons were undead. They couldn't be affected by things like fear or pain. With her last attack useless, the army finished her off. A system message popped up, confirming they had killed the queen of the mer people. The rewards were insane. Enough experience for 10 levels, 2 silver-level weapons, and a new skill. The captain held up the final reward, the Tear of the Mer people. She cheered, announcing that their trial mission was finally done. They were one step closer to getting into the Academy of Genesis. The team was celebrating. The captain said that with a few more missions like this, they'd definitely get into the Academy of Genesis. One of the men agreed, giving all the credit to Lin Moyu. Another woman complained about someone named Lin Zhen, vowing to never team up with him again. Lin Moyu turned to the woman with white hair and asked if she had a cooldown talisman. She said she did, already guessing what he was planning. A moment later, a magical pocket watch appeared, swirling with purple energy. The rest of the team overheard them. They were completely shocked, realizing he was actually going to use a cooldown talisman right away. When Lin Moyu's party stepped out of the dungeon, they found another team waiting. The onlookers were shocked, wondering how they got out so fast. It had only been about half an hour. The other adventurers started mocking them, guessing they couldn't handle the dungeon, and just ran away. They laughed, saying his skeletons were probably just for show. One of the guys watching looked genuinely angry. He seemed disappointed that they had all made it out alive. Back with his group, the captain warned everyone to stay alert. They were the only ones who had gone in so far. The woman with white hair, Yi, turned to her friend. She said it was time to move on with their plan. The crowd erupted in confusion as 2 figures walked back into the portal. They couldn't believe it. Just 2 of them were going into a nightmare-level dungeon? It was basically a death sentence. But the rest of their team wasn't worried at all. One of the women just smiled, reminding her friend that they'd seen Moyu's skills. She said he was strong enough to clear the whole thing by himself. Inside the newly reset dungeon, Yi joked with Lin Moyu. She hadn't expected him to be helping her level up so quickly. He just told her sure he was ready. Yi explained the plan. The cooldown talisman had enough power for them to clear the dungeon 2 more times. This was their chance to grab all 3 of the merfolk's tears. Lin Moyu told her they needed to move fast, and he was the one to do it. His skeleton warrior was already on the attack. The skeletons made quick work of the enemies. A system message popped up, confirming they had killed a level 21 elite merfolk warrior. Yi just watched, completely relaxed. Suddenly, a massive serpent burst out of the water, lunging right at them. But just as quickly, it was over. The system announced the kill of the merfolk queen serpent. The last time, it took them half an hour to get this far. This time, it only took 5 minutes. Yi looked at him, genuinely impressed. She admitted he was way more amazing than she thought. With that, she said it was time to head for the merfolk queen's palace. They moved deeper into the dungeon, with the skeletons clearing the path ahead. Anything that stood in their way was cut down instantly. With the guards gone, the merfolk queen finally appeared. A system window showed her stats. She was a boss-level monster, and she was incredibly strong. Yi immediately hid, trying not to look at her. She remembered the queen's enchantment ability and didn't want to fall for it a second time. She pointed right at the queen and urged Moyu to go destroy her. He didn't hesitate. He cast a slow curse, then immediately followed it up with a massive corpse explosion. The queen screamed as the attack hit. It was over in an instant. The rewards were huge. They got a ton of experience, 2 silver-grade weapons, and most importantly, another merfolk tier. All that experience was enough for Yi to level up. She was thrilled and told Moyu they needed to go again right away to get the rest of the tiers. Moyu just watched her, thinking about how much things had changed. He remembered she was level 18 when he was only level 10. After all this time, she'd only just hit level 20. He figured she must not like grinding for levels. From the shadows, another party was watching. They saw Moyu's team come out of the dungeon and couldn't believe how fast it was. They figured they must have failed, completely wasting the cooldown talisman. Another team was also watching closely. One of them pointed out that Moyu's party was done in just 10 minutes. She told her leader that Lin Moyu was way more capable than they had expected, but Moyu's team was already back inside. Yi was treating the whole thing like a game, excited to see if they could clear it even faster this time around, and they did it. She cheered when she saw their new time. They cleared it in under 7 minutes, a full 30 seconds faster than their last run. With the second tear in hand, Yi told Moyu they were done for now. She grinned, saying she couldn't wait to see the looks on everyone's faces when they walked out. The other party saw them come out again, just as quickly. They were completely convinced that Moyu's team was just wasting the talisman, running away without fighting a single monster. Meanwhile, the other team was getting ready to go in. But then, the dungeon's entrance started to swirl and disappear right in front of them. They stared in shock, wondering what was happening. It finally clicked. They knew the dungeon only disappears after 3 merfolk tears are collected. That meant Moyu's team hadn't failed at all. They had cleared it 3 times in a row. They had done the impossible. Just as Lin Moyu's team was about to leave, another party blocked their path. Their leader, a man named Jiang Tao Tao, looked furious. He yelled that they weren't going anywhere and demanded they hand over the merfolk tears. The other team watching from the sidelines was just as confused. They couldn't believe it, but the disappearing dungeon meant someone had all 3 tears. They decided they couldn't let anyone get away with them. In just a few moments, a huge crowd of adventurers had gathered, completely blocking their only way out. Jiang Tao Tao stared Moyu down, his face full of anger. But Lin Moyu just stood there, perfectly calm. Suddenly, dark energy exploded from Jiang Tao Tao. Shadowy beasts with glowing red eyes began to form all around him. The captain of Moyu's team watched with wide eyes. She was clearly worried by the power he was showing, but Lin Moyu didn't even flinch. He just raised his hand and activated a skill called Soul Blaze. A massive wave of bright green energy erupted from the ground, crashing down on Jiang Tao Tao. The Soul Blaze slammed into Jiang Tao Tao. It was an attack on his mind, and all he could hear was a single command echoing in his head, telling him to die. But Jiang Tao Tao wasn't done yet. He pulled out a golden talisman and summoned a martial god. A massive, fiery warrior erupted onto the battlefield. The creature looked like a demon with glowing red eyes. Jiang Tao Tao screamed for it to attack. It swung its giant axe, roaring that no attack could possibly harm it. Lin Moyu didn't even move. His skeleton warriors rushed forward and met the god head-on, unleashing a rage strike. The system showed their strength was off the charts. The supposedly invincible god was torn apart in a single moment. Jiang Tao Tao could only scream in disbelief. Everyone watching was stunned. One of the adventurers couldn't believe what he'd just seen, questioning how anyone could one-shot a martial god. The backlash hit Jiang Tao Tao hard. He collapsed to his knees, coughing up blood as the connection to his summon was broken. With the god defeated, Lin Moyu's skeleton simply stood there, waiting for their next order. Jiang Tao Tao staggered, spitting up blood. The backlash from his destroyed summon was brutal. With his main opponent down, Lin Moyu simply raised his hand and gave the order for his skeletons to finish the job. The other adventurers panicked. One of them screamed for his own summon to fight faster, but it was clear they were completely outmatched. The crowd watching from a distance couldn't believe it. They whispered about how strong his skeletons were, wondering how they could have killed a legendary martial god so easily. quickly. One of them finally understood. A level 17 necromancer with this kind of power had to have an awakened talent. He knew he had to report this immediately. A truly powerful person had just appeared. As the adventurers stood frozen in fear, the skeletons moved in, their glowing eyes fixed on their targets. The undead warriors closed the distance in seconds, towering over the terrified men. That's when the panic finally broke. They started screaming that they didn't want to fight, that they just wanted to live. Their courage was completely gone, and everyone started to run. The adventurers watching from the side couldn't help but laugh. One of them mocked the fleeing men, calling them trash for being scared of a few skeletons. He knew those weren't just any skeletons. They were strong enough to clear a nightmare dungeon. Miles away, another adventurer who had witnessed the fight was in awe. He looked up to the Necromancer as a role model, impressed by how he took down a martial god in one hit. Meanwhile, the man who had abandoned Lin Moyu's party watched from a distance. He was filled with regret, realizing he could have been one of the people who completed the trial if he'd just stayed. But his regret quickly turned into anger. He gritted his teeth, promising himself that this wasn't over. He would get back at Lin Moyu, back with the group. A system message appeared in front of one of the women. The trial was finally complete. The system announced that the trial was over. With that, the teleportation process began. They reappeared in a classroom at Qianlong Academy. One of his teammates thanked Lin Moyu, telling him how important the task was. The other girl just collapsed onto her desk, completely exhausted. The pink-haired girl lifted her head and told her friend not to be so polite. She explained that even though Lin Moyu doesn't talk much, he's a really good person. A message popped up on Lin Moyu's device. It was from someone named Bai Yiyuan, telling him to come to the dean's office. In the dean's office, Bai Yiyuan praised Lin Moyu, telling him his performance in the trial was the best he'd seen. Lin Moyu just said he did what he had to do. The dean then asked if he knew what the merfolk tears were actually used for. Lin Moyu admitted he had no idea. Bai Yiyuan explained that the tears are extremely important. They help a person awaken their talent at level 30, and items like that are incredibly rare. He thanked Lin Moyu for getting the tears for someone named Shen Xia. As a reward, the dean offered to grant him any one request. Lin Moyu immediately thought of his sister. He hadn't been able to find any information about her, and this seemed like the perfect chance to ask. So, he asked the dean for help finding someone. Bai Yiyuan didn't seem surprised at all, saying he knew that's what Moyu would ask. He explained that his sister, Lin Mohan, had joined the creation seminary at the beginning of the year. That's why he couldn't find her. All information on the seminary students is kept secret. Lin Moyu's mind raced. The creation seminary. It seemed like everyone he knew was connected to that place. His friends had told him to go there. His enemies wanted to get in, and now his sister was there too. He couldn't believe it. He never thought his sister would have ended up there. Bai Yiyuan explained that she had enrolled less than a year ago. Because of the seminary's strict rules, he couldn't tell him anything else. He told Moyu that if he really wanted answers, he'd have to get into the seminary and find his sister himself. The dean sent the admission requirements to Lin Moyu's device. He then explained that since he'd planned to tell him about his sister from the start, it wouldn't count as his reward. He told Moyu he could ask for something else. Lin Moyu knew exactly what he wanted. He asked for a cooldown talisman. He explained that it was an extremely rare item that couldn't be bought, and he really needed one. Bai Yiyuan laughed, saying he had a feeling Moyu would ask for that. He warned him that even the most basic cooldown talismans were hard to come by. The trial alone wasn't enough to earn one, but he had another task. If Moyu completed it, he'd help him get the talisman. Lin Moyu agreed without a second thought. With a cooldown talisman, he could level up much faster and get into the creation seminary that much sooner. The dean told him he'd have to wait until he hit level 25 to take on the task. To help him get there quickly, he gave him a teleportation stone for the dungeon hall, mentioning that it was a special item not everyone was allowed to have. Lin Moyu didn't waste a single second. He crushed the teleportation stone and disappeared in a flash of light. The dean watched him go, completely surprised. He figured Moyu would at least want to rest after completing such a difficult trial. He reappeared in a massive, bustling hall. This was the dungeon hall of Shenxia Academy. He looked around, taking it all in. Dozens of glowing signs floated in the air, each one advertising a different dungeon. They all had different requirements. Some needed mages, others needed knights, and all of them demanded a full set of powerful gear. Lin Moyu checked the message from the dean. The first requirement to enter the creation seminary was to be above level 30. He was stunned. His sister had only been at the academy for a few months. That meant she had somehow managed to hit level 30 in record time. The other requirements were even harder. He had to beat a level 30 dungeon on hell difficulty and gather 1,000 contribution points. He had no idea how to even start getting those points. Just then, a woman tapped him on the shoulder. She introduced herself as summoning and asked if it was his first time here. She offered to show him around the dungeons, clearly looking to earn some points. Lin Moyu asked her how much it would cost. She told him that just 100 points would be enough. He transferred the points without a word. She looked thrilled and thanked him. With the payment settled, she started her tour. She explained that the hall had dungeons for all levels, from below 20 all the way up to 40. She continued the tour, explaining that the hall had 95 dungeons in total. There were even dungeons for levels 40 to 70, and some massive ones that could hold over 120 people. She then pointed to a large orb, explaining that every dungeon keeps a record of its fastest clear time. Beating that record would earn him even better rewards. They moved to a different area of the hall, which she called the Task and Team Recruitment Center. This was the place to find quests or recruit other players for a team. After finishing her explanation, she asked if he had any questions. Lin Moyu had only one thing on his mind: how to get the contribution points he desperately needed. She explained that contribution points were earned by completing official tasks and trials organized by the academy. Lin Moyu did the math in his head. He needed 1,000 points to get into the seminary, but the best tasks only gave 10 points, and most gave way less. This was going to be almost impossible. She confirmed his worries, explaining that getting points was extremely difficult. Every time a new task appeared, someone would complete it almost instantly. She stressed that without those points, getting into the creation seminary was just a dream. Just then, a message popped up on his screen. It was from someone named Duan Gao, asking how many contribution points he'd received. The guy was bragging that he got 20 points and that a sister Tao got 30. The message he sent back left the other guy completely stunned. 50 points? He couldn't believe it. There was no way someone who looked so low level could earn that much in one go. The guide finished her explanation and offered to help him find a team. But Lin Moyu wasn't interested in partying up. He had his own plan. He looked at the information for the mutated forest. The record for clearing it had stood for 3 years. Lin Moyu decided he was going to be the one to break it. Without any hesitation, he selected the highest difficulty, Nightmare. The other players in the hall were shocked. They thought he was some big shot, but he just chose a dungeon for people under level 20. They started laughing, thinking he must have been lying about his contribution points. Ignoring them, Lin Moyu entered the mutated forest. He was only level 17. But he was already thinking about how much stronger he'd be by the end of this. Experience points started rolling in almost immediately. He decided not to waste time on the small fry. He'd let his skeletons clear the path while he went straight for the boss. With his skeletons at his side, he arrived at a dark lake. He stared across the water. He'd found it. The boss of the dungeon appeared, a mutated dragon turtle. Lin Moyu checked its stats and realized its defense was even higher than a level 24 merfolk queen. This thing was built like a fortress. The turtle lunged forward, and his skeletons met the charge head on, but their blades just bounced off. The turtle's super defense skill was no joke. Lin Moyu watched as even his skeleton's strongest hits did almost nothing. That turtle shell was just too tough. Now he understood why no one had set a new record in 3 years, but he was in a rush. He decided to use a different approach and unleashed his soul blaze skill. The blast of energy slammed into the creature, and it roared in pain. With the turtle stunned, he saw his chance. He ordered his skeletons to flip it over. Now that its soft belly was exposed, the skeletons swarmed it, unleashing their rage strike to finish the job. The system confirmed the kill. He got a huge chunk of experience, a bronze-level fist set, some heavy armor, and a monster core. He checked his progress. He figured one more clear would be enough to hit level 18. That's when he wondered what the reward was for setting a new record. Suddenly, back in the dungeon hall, a loud bell started ringing. Everyone looked up, realizing someone had just set a new record. The announcement appeared. A level 17 Necromancer named Lin Moyu had cleared the mutated forest in 35 minutes by himself. The crowd couldn't believe it. His time was almost twice as fast as the old record. Lin Moyu saw the rewards pop up. He got 1,000 points and 5 contribution points. He realized this was how he could get the points he needed for the seminary. The other players watched him, wondering if he was going to solo clear another dungeon. One of them, a level 30, admitted it would be embarrassing to ask a level 17 for help. He looked at the next dungeon, the spider nest, but the minimum entry was level 18. The people watching realized why he was back. He had to clear the mutated forest one more time to level up. Just 30 minutes later, he walked out of the portal. He had already hit level 18. The crowd was stunned by his speed, already wondering if he was about to break the spider nest record next. Just as the crowd was processing what happened, another bell rang. Lin Moyu had set a new record again. This time, he cleared the dungeon in just 24 minutes. Turns out, 35 minutes wasn't even his best. Everyone was stunned. One of the students couldn't believe it. He said that the old record was set by a nearly perfect team and had stood for 3 years. Now, some newcomer had broken it twice in a row, all by himself. Lin Moyu ignored the crowd and walked over to the next dungeon portal, the spider nest. The record for that one was 1 hour and 12 minutes. Just like the last one, nobody had beaten it in 3 years. He wasn't doing this to show off. He thought about the seminary and knew he had no choice. He needed those contribution points, and this was the fastest way to get them. He stepped up to the portal. He stepped into the spider nest. The whole place was a massive, dark cavern. The darkness didn't bother him. He just summoned his skeleton warriors to lead the way. He quickly realized the entire dungeon was a maze, so he sent his skeletons in every direction to map it out for him. His skeletons were already fighting spiders deep inside, but the system notifications showed it was taking too long. He knew he couldn't break any records this way. Then he noticed the tiny spiders crawling everywhere. He checked their stats and realized they were also considered dungeon monsters. That gave him an idea. Instead of hunting down individual targets, he decided to try something different. He unleashed his Soul Blaze skill on the entire swarm at once. It worked perfectly. He wiped out at least 100 small spiders in a single wave. The experience he gained was massive, and he knew this was the best way to level up fast. As the spiders were destroyed, a notification popped up. His physique stat had already jumped to 2,900. Lin Moyu tried to call back his skeleton warriors. It was his usual strategy for wearing down a boss, but it didn't work. The system told him the return failed. His skeleton was completely covered in tiny spiders, and he realized they were preventing the recall. So he came up with a new plan. He activated his corpse explosion skill. blasting all the small spiders off his warrior. The experience points started rolling in immediately. He realized this place was perfect for farming experience. He decided to send his skeletons out in smaller groups of 10, making sure they wouldn't get swarmed again. 10 minutes later, his strategy paid off. He stood before the dungeon boss, a massive level 21 spider king. He taunted the beast, saying it was his turn to fight with numbers. Back outside, the other players were getting restless. They wondered if he could actually solo the spider nest, knowing the boss was incredibly strong. The fight was long, but he won. The system confirmed the kill, rewarding him with a huge amount of experience and a new weapon. His experience bar shot up, but he knew he'd have to do it all over again for the contribution points. The woman waiting outside couldn't believe he was still in there after more than an hour. Just then, the portal lit up, and Lin Moyu stepped out. She rushed over, asking if he'd actually cleared the dungeon. Lin Moyu just calmly confirmed he cleared the dungeon. The woman was stunned. She realized his speed, all by himself, was as fast as the 5-person team that set the original record. And he looked so casual about it, like clearing a nightmare-level dungeon was just a walk in the park. Instead of celebrating, he immediately asked her which dungeons gave the most experience. She told him the spider nest was the best, but he knew farming it would cost a lot of points to reset the cooldown. So he asked if there was a better option, a dungeon that was fast to clear, but still gave great experience. She lit up, saying there was one. She pointed him toward a huge portal for a large-scale dungeon called the Tyrant Desert. She explained it was a level 20 dungeon that could hold up to 50 people. Lin Moyu thought about it. He needed to reach level 20 for another mission anyway, so this seemed perfect. He thanked her and said he needed to speed things up. But then he walked right back towards the spider nest portal. The woman was completely confused by his choice. He was back inside. He looked at the swarms of spiders, ready to take every last bit of experience they had to offer. Turns out, Lin Moyu wasn't just being watched by the crowd in the dungeon hall. A man named Bai Yiyuan was monitoring his every move on a massive screen. He admitted that even though he'd met him before, he was still shocked by what he was seeing. 2 other men, clearly important figures, were just as impressed. One couldn't believe a single person was clearing the dungeon so easily. He turned to Bai Yiyuan and asked him about Lin Moyu's talent, but Bai admitted he didn't know the full extent of it. Bai Yiyuan took a sip of his drink. He told the others that the kid was definitely good and had a bright future. Then he dropped a bombshell. Lin Moyu's sister had already joined the creation seminary. Not only that, but she was being personally trained by a master who only picks the absolute best. They realized that with a sister that talented, it was very likely Lin Moyu would be taken in as well. The men looked at each other, understanding what this meant. In the near future, the human race was about to get 2 new rising stars. And from the looks of it, Lin Moyu was going to be something special. He was going to become an one-man army, capable of fighting 1,000 enemies all by himself. Back in the dungeon, Lin Moyu knew exactly what he was doing. He hadn't killed every spider this time. He lost a little experience, but it cut his clear time way down. He was sure this run would break the record. And just like that, the bell in the main hall started ringing again. Everyone looked up. They knew who it was. The crowd erupted, shouting about how talented he was. He had done it again. But not everyone in the crowd was celebrating. One student scoffed, telling his friend that Lin Moyu wasn't talented, just lucky. He was convinced Lin Moyu had some connection to the White God and got a powerful treasure from him. He refused to believe a new student could clear a nightmare dungeon by himself. Before he could continue, a woman stepped in to defend Lin Moyu. She demanded to know what was wrong with a student from an ordinary background setting a record. She recognized the guy was from a big academy and called him out for looking down on everyone else. Right then, the portal lit up. Lin Moyu was back. The system announced he'd set a new record for the spider nest, clearing it in just 47 minutes. He was almost half an hour faster than the previous record holders. Someone in the crowd immediately pointed out the guy who'd been badmouthing him. Lin Moyu turned to face his accuser. The student didn't back down, telling him to stop pretending and accusing him of only succeeding because the White God was helping him. But Lin Moyu had heard enough. A dark, cold energy began to rise from him. He just stared at the guy, and his gaze was absolutely chilling. The student's arrogance vanished, replaced by pure terror. He suddenly wondered if Lin Moyu had killed before. He tried to convince himself he was just imagining things, but he couldn't shake the fear. But Lin Moyu decided it wasn't worth his time. He turned and walked away. Fighting this guy was pointless. He had a much more important goal. He needed to reach level 20 today. He was back in the dungeon, surrounded by a skeleton army. He knew this was the last push. Clearing this would finally get him to level 20. And then it happened. A golden light washed over him. He'd done it. He was finally level 20. He immediately checked his stats and saw his spirit had jumped to an incredible 1,300. But the biggest change was in his skills. His summoning ability had leveled up. He could now call forth a silver-grade skeleton warrior, and he was eager to see what it could do. He tried it out and immediately felt the drain. The system told him it cost 500 spirit. This new summon was expensive, but it was worth it. The silver-grade skeleton warrior was a monster. With his blessing talent, its stats were easily on par with a dungeon boss. This changed everything. He realized that while the new summon was powerful, his own equipment was starting to feel weak. He decided it was time for an upgrade. He'd sell the extra silver gear he collected and buy some new skill scrolls. He headed for the trading area. As soon as he walked in, people started talking. They couldn't believe he'd set another record, clearing the dungeon in less than half an hour this time. He walked up to the counter and put his equipment down. He asked the clerk to sell everything and use the money to buy beginner-level skill scrolls. The clerk just stared, confused. He couldn't figure out why a level 20 player would need beginner gear. The clerk looked at the gear, then back at Lin Moyu, completely confused. He asked why a level 20 player would sell perfectly good silver equipment instead of using it. Lin Moyu explained that he did need new equipment, but ordinary silver gear was useless to him. The skill buffs on the items were nothing compared to his own god-level talent. The clerk was so shocked, he almost dropped the gear. The clerk's attitude changed completely. He told Lin Moyu that if he wanted real top-tier items, he needed to check out the point store. That's where the truly good stuff was. The clerk went to sell the items, telling Lin Moyu to take a look around first. The first thing that caught his eye was a silver-grade long sword. It gave a massive 400-point boost to Spirit and was part of something called the Spirit set. He realized the items here were on a completely different level. A full set would be expensive, costing around 10,000 points, something no new student could afford. He then saw the other pieces, a robe and a ring, each adding 200 spirit. But the real prize was the set bonus. Wearing all three pieces would give him an extra 800 spirit on top of everything else. He thought about it for a moment. The set was good. There was no denying that. But for him, it was just good, nothing more. As he looked around, he overheard a few other students complaining. They were looking at a strange black scythe, calling it garbage, and wondering why it cost 50,000 points when it didn't even have any stats. Lin Moyu walked over to get a better look. A price tag of 50,000 points was insane. He knew that almost no one in the entire academy could afford something like that. He pulled up the item's information. It was called the Denitus Sickle, a growth-type weapon that was part of the Death Spirit set. The system explained that it absorbed souls to gain experience and level up, but its most powerful skill allowed the user to summon a deceased hero general to lead an army of the undead, summoning a hero general. This was exactly what he needed. His skeleton warriors were powerful, but they lacked a true commander. And on top of that, it was part of a set. To everyone else, it was just an ugly weapon with no attributes. But he saw its real power. It could grow stronger by absorbing the souls of his enemies. He knew what he had to do. This was the weapon he wanted. He walked back to the counter and told the clerk he'd take it. The clerk was stunned, asking if he was sure and if he'd seen the price correctly. Lin Moyu just handed over his card. The total came to 130,000 points. The clerk's jaw dropped. He couldn't believe this guy actually had that much. With the purchase complete, Lin Moyu walked away, his new weapon in hand. The clerk watched him go, thinking about how that scythe had been collecting dust for years. He never imagined it would finally find an owner today. He couldn't test his new scythe just yet, so he turned his attention to the pile of skill scrolls he'd bought. With so many, he was bound to learn something useful. He sat down, picked a scroll, and activated it. A bright light filled the room. The system announced he'd learned a new skill, skeleton armor. It was a defense skill, something he desperately needed. He realized that with his special blessings, the base defense would be multiplied, making him incredibly tough to hurt. He immediately decided to try it out. Blue energy started swirling around him. The energy began to take shape, forming a massive, bony structure right behind him. He focused, controlling the flow of power with a single gesture. Then, the energy changed from blue to a burning gold. With a single word, he called forth a new servant. A dark, hooded skeleton rose from the shadows, ready to obey his command. The system showed him the stats for his new summon, a skeleton mage. It had a skill called Burst Flame that dealt fire damage based on his spirit attribute. For someone with his insane spirit stat, this was a game changer. This changed everything. His army could now attack from a distance. He knew that as he continued to level up, his skeleton mages would become a terrifying force on the battlefield. The next morning, his spirit had fully recovered. It was time to go find out about the task he'd been promised. He found the White God and told him he'd already reached level 20. The man was stunned. It had only been one day. He couldn't believe Lin Moyu's leveling speed was even faster than his own had been. He muttered to himself that both siblings were monsters. Then he told Lin Moyu the task was simple. He just needed him to retrieve something. He explained that there was a huge dungeon called the Tyrant Desert. Lin Moyu's mission was to go there and bring back the Tyrant Heart. He warned him that this was a dungeon meant for 40 players, so the difficulty would be high. If Lin Moyu could get the heart back in 3 days, he'd be rewarded with a special cooldown talisman. He explained that this talisman was special. Some of the best dungeons have cooldowns that last for a whole month. An item like that would be priceless for getting around the wait. The White God added another bonus. If Lin Moyu completed the task, he'd also teach him how to upgrade the talisman. Lin Moyu was surprised. He didn't even know that was possible. Lin Moyu accepted the mission without hesitation. The White God explained that the 3-day time limit was so he'd be back in time for the school's opening ceremony. After Lin Moyu left, another powerful figure, Ning Tairan, appeared. He asked the White God what he thought of the new student. The White God admitted he was very satisfied, saying he liked Lin Moyu's quiet nature. Ning Tairan figured Lin Moyu would definitely try to solo the dungeon. He then reminded the white god that he had tried the same thing at level 30 and came back with nothing, but the white god just smiled. He admitted that the Lin Moyu of today was already far stronger than he had been back then. Lin Moyu arrived at the dungeon hall, and people immediately recognized him. They whispered among themselves, shocked that the guy who set all those records yesterday was already eyeing the Tyrant Desert. He glanced at the leaderboard. The record was held by Feilong Academy. A team of 40 people took over 16 hours to clear it. Just then, a woman walked up and said hello. She asked if he was really going to the Tyrant Desert. She thought he was working way too hard, especially after clearing so many dungeons the day before. He told her plainly that he was going to get the Tyrant's heart. She was stunned. That was an item only the final boss would drop. She explained that the heart could be used to make a powerful accessory called the Tyrant's Necklace. It only dropped once every 2 years, and it had been exactly 2 years since someone last got it. She couldn't believe it. She pointed out that he was only level 20 and asked where the rest of his party was. Then it hit her. She covered her mouth and asked if he was actually planning to solo it, reminding him that the current record had stood for 4 years. She was completely speechless. Lin Moyu just stood there, calm and ready, with his skeleton warrior right behind him. She just stared, completely stunned. The idea of someone trying to solo a 40-man dungeon was just insane. Just then, a group of heavily armored players walked in, and the crowd started whispering. It was the team from the Battle Academy, decked out in gold-grade gear. They were here to set a new record in the Tyrant Desert. Everyone was sure that this time, the Battle Academy would finally break the 4-year-old record. The leader looked over his team with a serious expression. He warned them to get ready, telling them there was no backing down now. But before the team could even move, Lin Moyu just walked straight toward the portal. He stepped through without a single word, and the crowd went silent, then erupted. They couldn't believe he was actually going in alone. The leader of the Battle Academy team just scoffed. He dismissed Lin Moyu as some clueless newbie who didn't even understand what a large dungeon was. He told his team to forget about the kid and get ready. It was their turn to enter. And just like that, Lin Moyu was inside the Tyrant Desert. The sun was beating down hard. He realized this dungeon was massive, and he couldn't even use the sun to figure out which way to go. With no map to guide him, he knew he'd have to figure this place out on his own. So he sent his skeletons out to explore. The system map showed him the layout, and it wasn't long before he found something. A monster. It was a level 25 desert ghost tree, an extremely strong elite monster. Its stats were insane for something you'd find at the start of a dungeon. He realized the regular monsters here were as strong as a boss from his last dungeon. Even with his army, this wasn't going to be an easy fight, but his skeletons took it down. The system window popped up, and the reward was unbelievable. 3 million experience points from a single monster. That's when it hit him. If every monster gave this much experience, this place wasn't just a dungeon. It was a gold mine for leveling up, but he knew there could be hidden dangers everywhere. To be safe, he activated his skeleton armor. He and his skeletons walked for what felt like forever. 2 hours later, they finally spotted something in the distance. It was an oasis. Lin Moyu knew that an oasis in the middle of a desert was a magnet for life. He figured most of the monsters in this area would be gathered right there, and he was right. The moment his skeletons got close, a giant scorpion burst from the sand. The system showed it was a level 25 monster with insane strength. He was glad he hadn't just rushed in himself. One of his skeleton warriors used Rage Strike, cutting the scorpion down instantly. The system notified him that he'd gained a ton of experience and some materials. That's when he noticed something else. There were glowing fruits hanging from the palm trees, surrounded by more scorpions. He was surprised to find consumable items in the dungeon. He immediately came up with a plan. He ordered some of his skeletons to keep the scorpions busy, while the rest went to gather all the fruit. One of his summons brought a fruit back to him. The system explained it was a desert oasis, fruit that could quickly recover his spirit, but it had to be eaten within 5 minutes. He took a bite, and his spirit bar shot up almost instantly. This was a game changer. With these fruits, he could keep fighting for a very long time. He realized that with all these fruits, he basically had an unlimited supply of spirit. His skeletons kept the scorpions busy while gathering as many as they could. A smile spread across his face. This oasis was the perfect place to practice and level up his skills. He'd been worried about how to train his skeleton mages, but now he had his answer. With an endless supply of spirit, he could constantly summon his mages. As long as he could get them to level 20, they would evolve into a much stronger silver grade form. So that's what he did. He ate another fruit and got back to work. 3 hours later, he finally did it. The system announced that his skeleton mage had reached level 20. He summoned the newly upgraded mage. It was now a silver grade ice type with a powerful new skill called Ice Storm. But that wasn't all. He had also unlocked fire, electric, and wind type mages. Each one came with its own unique attack skill, making his army a whole lot more dangerous. Turns out, he wasn't alone in the oasis. He faced the newcomers with a cold smile. He told them they'd had their fun breaking his old skeletons. Now, it was their turn. His 4 elemental mages stood ready to attack. Fire, ice, wind, and lightning. His army wasn't just a wall of bones anymore. It was a storm of pure magic. The mages didn't wait. A tornado of wind, a blast of fire, a storm of ice, and a bolt of lightning all slammed into the enemy swarm at once. The new skills were on a completely different level. The monsters were torn apart before they could even get close. Lin Moyu watched the destruction with a small smile. This, he thought, was what a real dungeon was supposed to feel like. He glanced at his status. He had 130 skeleton warriors and 70 mages. It wasn't just a few summons anymore. It was a small army. He realized that as long as the monsters were all around the same level, he could probably clear out an entire dungeon all by himself. With the mages providing cover, his skeleton warriors charged forward to clean up the rest. But he decided to speed things up. He raised his hand, activating one of his deadliest skills, Corpse Explosion. A huge blast of energy ripped through the area, wiping out everything that was left standing. The system notifications started rolling in. Each scorpion he killed gave him a huge amount of experience and some useful materials. When the dust settled, the oasis was quiet. Lin Moyu was almost disappointed. He hadn't even gotten to use all of his other skills yet. With his mages now at silver grade, he knew it was time to move on. He had to find the dungeon boss and get the tyrant's heart. Wasting any more time wasn't an option. But then he felt a tremor in the ground. Something was coming. It wasn't just something. It was a whole monster horde. Without a second thought, he summoned his skeleton armor. The system identified them as level 26 desert soldier ants. There were thousands of them swarming across the sand. But something was weird. They weren't charging at him. They were all marching in the same direction, like they were heading somewhere specific. It looked like they were all going to the exact same spot. He followed the swarm of ants until he reached a massive, glowing cave. This had to be their nest. Suddenly, a new threat appeared. A desert flying ant. The system showed it was a level 27 elite monster. Lin Moyu knew these were the queen's personal troops, which meant the boss had to be close. One of the ants dove straight for him, but his skeleton armor blocked the attack instantly. The hit was surprisingly strong, though. He felt like the ant was just picking on him because his armor skill wasn't leveled up yet. He wasn't going to just sit there and take it. He summoned one of his new silver-grade mages to handle the problem. The mage lifted its weapon and unleashed a massive tornado. The spell tore through the air, catching all the flying ants in its powerful winds. Just like that, the fight was over. The system confirmed the kills, and Lin Moyu immediately called forth the rest of his soldiers, ready for whatever came next. He gave his army a new command. All warriors were to spread out and find the queen ant. He knew his mages were more than enough to hold the line. The warriors could focus entirely on the search. While the warriors searched, his elemental mages unleashed a storm of magic, clearing out waves of enemies with ease. It didn't take long. He saw on his map that his soldiers had found her. He decided it was time to go introduce himself to the boss. He arrived to find the queen ant. The system showed she was a level 29 leader monster, surrounded by her personal guard of elite soldiers. He looked at the queen and felt disappointed. He thought she'd be a challenge, but this just seemed boring. He told his soldiers to go play. One of the queen's guards immediately lunged forward, unleashing a skill called Storm Strike. The attack slammed into him, but his skeleton armor held strong. He was surprised, though. The skill was just as powerful as one from his own soldiers. With the queen ant in sight, Lin Moyu gave his army their orders. The mages would hold back her army, while the warriors went straight for the kill. The warriors charged forward. The queen's personal guards immediately activated a defensive skill, hardening their shells to block the incoming assault. But their defense didn't stand a chance. The warriors shattered their shells, and the system lit up with notifications as the guards were taken down. That's when the queen ant finally retaliated. She unleashed a massive wave of energy that instantly wiped out all of his warriors. After her attack, she curled into a defensive ball and began summoning a new swarm of ants. Lin Moyu just watched, completely unfazed. He called her defensive move a waste of time and simply revived all his warriors on the spot. He turned to look at the massive swarm she had summoned. He recognized the skill she was using. A smile spread across his face. If she was going to summon more troops, he had an idea. He mocked the queen ant for giving him exactly what he needed. With a whole new army of bodies to work with, he activated his corpse explosion skill. The entire cavern lit up as a chain reaction of explosions tore through the ant swarm. The system confirmed the kill. He'd gained a massive amount of experience, a silver-grade spear and ring, and even a queen ant egg. The gear was valuable, but the experience was even better. Just from that one fight, his level progress jumped significantly. He made a mental note to come back and farm later, but for now, he had to find the tyrant's heart. 2 hours passed. His army continued to cut a path through the dungeon. Finally, he reached the end of the path and stared up at what was waiting for him. A huge, lion-like creature sat on a throne, surrounded by guards. The system identified him as the Lion Tyrant, a world-level leader. This was the real boss. He finally arrived at a massive fortress in the middle of the desert. This had to be the place. The system identified the guards as desert lion archers and warriors. They were level 28 elite monsters, and their stats were much higher than the ants he'd fought before. He immediately noticed they were moving in a tight, organized formation. The old trick of just overwhelming them wasn't going to work this time. But Lin Moyu wasn't worried at all. If they wanted a battle between armies, he was more than ready to give them one. He called on his deathly speaker skill to summon a hero general. A huge, armored figure appeared before him. The system confirmed it was a hero general with a special skill called military influence. With his general in place, Lin Moyu began to call forth the rest of his soldiers. The hero general's military influence skill activated, empowering the entire army. Lin Moyu gave the final command, go and destroy them. The skeleton army charged forward, a wave of death, ready to crash against the fortress walls. The Desert Lion warriors didn't back down. They let out a huge roar, ready to meet the charge head on. The archers on the walls responded instantly, unleashing their 100 arrows skill. The sky went dark with a storm of projectiles. The volleys slammed into the front lines of the skeleton army with incredible force. As the battle raged, Lin Moyu realized there was a problem. Since the enemies were dying inside the castle, he wouldn't be able to use his corpse explosion skill, but it didn't matter. He looked at his warriors with a small smile, knowing he could count on them. His soldiers didn't need any fancy tricks. One of them unleashed a rage strike, smashing through the enemy lines. While the warriors fought, his mages focused all their power on destroying the main gate. He was shocked to see how much mana it was costing him. Half of it was already gone, and the gate was still standing. He finally understood. This dungeon was designed for a whole party, with different classes working together to get past the gate. But he didn't have a party. He just had a problem of not enough firepower. So, he ordered his soldiers to stack the bodies at the gate. It was time for a corpse explosion. A massive explosion ripped through the gate, blowing it to pieces. With the gate gone, the path forward was clear. And at the end of the hall, sitting on a throne, was the final boss. The system identified it as the Lion Tyrant, a world-level leader. Its stats were insane, way higher than anything he'd seen before. He looked up at the creature. So this was a world-level boss. It was on a completely different level. The Lion Tyrant rose to its full height, a truly massive figure. But Lin Moyu just looked back, completely unimpressed. He was in a rush. The battle began instantly. One of Lin Moyu's skeleton warriors leaped forward, leading the charge with a skill called Fury Pounce. Its stats were impressive, every attribute at 4,000. But the Lion Tyrant was on another level. It swatted the warrior aside with incredible force. The system immediately reported that 2 skeleton warriors had been destroyed. The creature wasn't done. It roared and unleashed a massive thunderbolt attack, aiming to paralyze the entire army. A wave of pure energy exploded outwards, engulfing everything nearby. The boss stood there, crackling with power. It was clear this fight would require everything Lin Moyu had. Then it unleashed another skill, a revolving storm that tore through the skeletons. The system flashed a new warning. 24 warriors had died. Watching from a distance, Lin Moyu was genuinely surprised. He admitted to himself that even a high-level knight wouldn't be able to handle this kind of power. Still, his army pressed on. The Lion Tyrant let out a hell roar, and another wave of power washed over the battlefield. 14 more skeletons were wiped out in an instant. The Lion Tyrant's attack slammed into Lin Moyu, sending him flying. He realized with a shock that his skeleton armor wouldn't last more than 2 seconds against this thing. He wasn't afraid for himself. His damage transfer passive kept him safe, but he knew that if he hesitated now, his whole army would get wiped out. A skeleton warrior leapt forward with a Fury Pounce, buying him a precious moment. With the boss distracted, Lin Moyu began to cast his own spell, unleashing a powerful soul blaze. That was the opening they needed. The skeleton warriors saw their chance and charged in for a full-scale assault. His mages surrounded the Lion Tyrant, blasting it with a storm of magic from all sides. But the boss wasn't going down easy. It roared and unleashed a rage strike, tearing through the front line. The system confirmed 4 more warriors had been destroyed. Lin Moyu poured everything he had into the soul blaze. He knew if he hadn't upgraded his mages to silver grade before this fight, he would have been dead already. 20 minutes passed. The Lion Tyrant was battered and broken, hit by a constant barrage of elemental attacks. Lin Moyu watched, knowing the end was near. With the Lion Tyrant finally defeated, the rewards started rolling in. The system awarded him a massive amount of experience. The real prize was the loot. 3 gold-grade weapons, and a special item called the Tyrant's Heart. Lin Moyu couldn't help but be impressed. This was a boss he could definitely approve of. As the dust settled, a golden light washed over Lin Moyu. He had leveled up. He'd been so focused on the boss, he'd completely forgotten. The system confirmed it. He was now level 21. His stats had all jumped up, but something else caught his eye. His skeleton mage's skill had also been upgraded to level 21. He stared at the screen, a thought hitting him. If his skills leveled up with him automatically, that changed everything. He knew what he had to do. He needed to get all his skills maxed out as fast as possible. Far away, in a large hall, a crowd was buzzing. A new record had just been set in a major dungeon, and everyone wanted to know who did it. A confident-looking man named Bai Li Sheng stepped forward. People immediately assumed it was him, since he was from the famous Bailey Academy. But someone else in the crowd remembered that Lin Moyu had gone in too. Bai Li Sheng scoffed at the name. He demanded to know who this Lin Moyu was, unable to believe anyone would dare compete with him. When his subordinate told him Lin Moyu went in alone, he just burst out laughing. He thought it was ridiculous for someone to try a 40-person dungeon by themselves, calling him a fool who didn't know his limits. One of the onlookers defended Lin Moyu, reminding his friend that he'd already set records in 2 other dungeons. Bai Li Sheng just scoffed. He said setting records in low-level dungeons meant nothing. He was absolutely sure his team was the one who broke the record this time. Suddenly, a golden announcement lit up the hall. The tyrant's heart had been found. The crowd buzzed with excitement, certain that Bailey Academy had done it. Bai Lisheng threw his head back and laughed. He was ecstatic, bragging that they didn't just get the record, but the tyrant's heart too. But then, the announcement board updated. A new record had been set in the Tyrant Desert Dungeon. The name on the screen wasn't Bai Lisheng, it was Lin Moyu. The entire hall went silent. Bai Lisheng's face twisted in disbelief as he read the name over and over. Just then, a portal opened, and Lin Moyu walked out. The crowd stared, whispering in amazement that one person could clear a boss like that, and so quickly. Bai Lisheng stormed right up to him, his face filled with anger. He demanded to know if he was Lin Moyu. Lin Moyu just looked back, confused, his mind already on his next task. Lin Moyu didn't even bother to look at him. He just brushed Bai Lisheng aside, saying he was busy. As Lin Moyu walked away, the crowd started laughing. They thought it was hilarious that the arrogant Bailey Academy had been so completely shut down. Then, someone pointed out the scariest part. Lin Moyu was level 21, which meant he'd cleared the dungeon solo at level 20. They couldn't believe a human could do something like that. Meanwhile, in his office, Bai Yuan was on a call with Lin Moyu. He was asking if Moyu needed help finding a party, offering to recommend some people. But on the screen, Lin Moyu's message was simple. He'd already gotten the tyrant's heart. Bai Yuan's eyes went wide. He had to ask him to repeat that. He couldn't believe it. He had just given him that task, and it was already done. Bai Yuan immediately asked where he was. Lin Moyu replied that he was waiting at the dormitory entrance. Just as he was waiting outside the dormitory, his watch suddenly beeped. It was a new notification from the system. He had set a record for the Tyrant Desert, earning him a massive one-time reward of points and contribution score. But before he could even process the reward, he felt a powerful presence approaching. Two figures appeared in front of him. It was Bai Yuan, but he'd brought someone else along. Lin Moyu was stunned. It was the famous Mr. Meng. Lin Moyu greeted him respectfully. The man, Meng Anwen, was a divine-level formation master. He told Moyu there was no need to be so formal and offered him a seat. Once they were all seated, Bai Yuan got right to it. He asked Moyu to show them the tyrant's heart. The moment he placed it on the table, they knew it was real. Both masters stared at it, amazed. Bai Yuan had to ask, did he really clear the whole dungeon by himself again? Lin Moyu simply said yes. Bai Yuan then asked for his clear time. When Moyu told them it took him around 14 hours, the two masters were just speechless. Meng Anwen reminded Bai Yuan to keep his word, and Bai Yuan simply agreed. As they spoke, Lin Moyu crushed a small talisman he'd been given, activating it. It was a cooldown talisman. He immediately understood what this meant. With this, his leveling speed would increase dramatically. Bai Yuan asked if Moyu was in a hurry to enter the creation seminary. Moyu said yes, but explained that the requirements were incredibly high. He needed to set 3 new records to even qualify. He then asked if he could also use the UN battlefield to help him get the scores he needed. Lin Moyu didn't hesitate, saying it was no problem. Bai Yuan told him to get some rest, promising to send him to the battlefield after the school's opening ceremony was over. Moyu simply thanked him. Once Lin Moyu was gone, Meng Anwen voiced his concern, asking if it was really okay to send him there so early. But Bai Yuan was confident. He reminded Meng that at only level 20, Moyu's skills were already better than people who had evolved their class twice. The earlier he went, the better. But Meng Anwen pointed out one crucial thing they'd left out. They hadn't told him that humanity's greatest enemy was also there. After a long day of clearing dungeons, Lin Moyu decided to get some sleep. He'd worry about leveling up his other skills tomorrow. Meanwhile, a warrior in gold armor stepped out of a portal, announcing his return. The crowd recognized them instantly. It was the team from Bailey Academy. Their leader proudly announced they'd set a new record, clearing the dungeon in just under 16 hours. His teammates looked on with smug satisfaction, completely sure of their victory. But as they gathered in the main hall, one of them noticed something was wrong. They hadn't gotten the tyrant's heart. If they didn't get it, then who did? The answer was right there on the leaderboard. It read, Lin Moyu, level 21, with a clear time of 14 hours and 11 minutes. The leader stared, his eyes fixed on the last 2 words. One person. He couldn't believe it. 14 hours. At only level 21, he refused to accept that it was even possible. The onlookers didn't hold back, openly laughing at the Academy's shattered pride. They all agreed. Lin Moyu was on another level, and Bailey Academy was nothing compared to him. The next morning, Lin Moyu woke up. His spirit had fully recovered. He headed out, thinking about his next move. That's when a stranger walked up and asked if he was Lin Moyu. The man said he was from Bailey Academy. He told Lin Moyu that their headmaster wanted a meeting and that he should follow him. But Lin Moyu just ignored him and kept walking. The guy got angry, demanding to know if he had any idea who Bai Lisheng was. Lin Moyu didn't even turn around. He said he didn't know the name, and if the headmaster wanted to see him, he could come himself. Leaving the guy behind, Lin Moyu checked the dungeon status. It had a 9-day cooldown, and resetting it would cost 2,500 points total. A pretty steep price. As he stood there, a group of adventurers spotted him. They started begging a woman named Miss Shuhan to ask for his help, saying they'd pay him in points to clear the Tyrant Desert with them. They promised they didn't want any of the loot, just the clear. Feeling the pressure, Miss Shuhan finally gave in and agreed to ask. The man who tried to summon Lin Moyu reported back to his boss. He explained that Lin Moyu refused to come and demanded the headmaster see him personally. The boss was furious at the disrespect. He decided to let it go for now. but promised to teach the new student a lesson later on. Meanwhile, back at the dungeon entrance, the crowd was getting desperate. They all needed to pass a task given by the academy. People started begging Lin Mo-yu to take them along, even offering to pay him 1,000 points. He was confused and asked what task they were talking about. Miss Shuhan explained that they were all stuck on the Tyrant Desert task. If they didn't complete it, they couldn't get into the academy. She promised they didn't care about any of the items or experience from the dungeon. They just needed to finish the quest. Lin Mo-yu admitted he was a new student, so he hadn't heard about the task. The whole group was stunned. It finally made sense why his level was so low, but it made his achievement even more unbelievable. The offers started pouring in, with everyone willing to pay 1,000 points. Lin Mo-yu realized this was a great way to make money. He agreed to help them complete the task, but told them he had one condition. His request was simple. If they happened to find an oasis fruit inside the dungeon, it belonged to him. The group quickly agreed. The oasis fruit was so rare, they figured they'd never see one anyway. With the deal settled, Lin Mo-yu announced he could take 39 people with him and asked who wanted to go first. The crowd immediately went crazy, everyone shouting to be picked. One adventurer was especially desperate, yelling that he'd been stuck on this single task for almost a year. The crowd was getting out of control, shoving and shouting to be picked. That's when Miss Shuhan stepped in, yelling at everyone to be quiet and form a proper line. She warned them that if they annoyed Lin Mo-yu, he might just change his mind. Her yelling worked. Soon, everyone was standing in a neat line. Lin Mo-yu thanked her for handling the crowd. Miss Shuhan told him not to worry about it and then made him an offer. If he ever needed help with a task in the future, he should look for her. Lin Mo-yu agreed, promising not to turn her down. With the first group of 39 adventurers ready, Lin Mo-yu led them into the Tyrant Desert. The group was ecstatic, shouting that they would follow his every command without question. Once they were inside, he didn't waste a second. He summoned his skeleton warriors, giving them a single command: find the oasis fruits. The adventurers who paid to be there could only stare in shock. They knew he was a necromancer, but they had never imagined an army this big. They realized his legendary skill was even more terrifying than they thought. The skeletons immediately found a target, a powerful desert ghost tree. The adventurers watched in disbelief as the skeletons destroyed the elite monster in a single hit. One of them yelled that his party had spent minutes fighting that same creature last time. A notification popped up, confirming the kill. Lin Mo-yu sighed. As he expected, sharing the experience with 39 other people gave him almost nothing, but he had earned 39,000 points, and that was a good start. His main goal now was to level up his skills. The adventurers watched as Lin Mo-yu's skeletons herded a huge mob of monsters together. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. They wondered if he was seriously planning to take them all down in one go. After a quick search, he realized there were no oasis fruits. He figured he just got lucky the first time. With nothing else to find, he decided to just kill the boss and reset the dungeon. The adventurers had no idea what was happening. That's when Lin Mo-yu raised his hand and unleashed one of his most devastating skills: Corpse Explosion. A huge explosion wiped out everything. The adventurers' experience bars started shooting up like crazy. They couldn't comprehend how fast he was killing things, calling his skill completely overpowered. He told the group he'd cleared all the nearby monsters. He instructed them to wait there, while he went ahead to deal with the ant nest by himself. The adventurers quickly agreed, telling him to take his time. As he walked off, the adventurers just stood there, completely stunned. It had only been 3 hours, and they felt like they'd been in a daze the whole time. They all agreed that if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they never would have believed this was possible. About 20 minutes later, a couple of the adventurers started getting bored. One of them suggested they try fighting a monster themselves. He figured that if Lin Mo-yu was killing them so easily, they couldn't be that hard. The others quickly agreed. They were professionals, with higher levels than Lin Mo-yu. They reasoned they should be able to kill at least one monster. Besides, they felt like they hadn't even participated in the dungeon run at all. Their plan went wrong almost immediately. Instead of luring just one monster, they had accidentally pulled 2. The leader yelled for everyone to get ready for battle. He told the support members to have their heals ready. This was no longer a game. One of the adventurers, a tank, stepped forward and taunted the scorpion. He told the others to stay calm, thinking it wasn't even fully grown. The scorpion's counterattack was way stronger than they expected. A massive blow sent one of the fighters flying, and he immediately screamed for support to heal him. The healer shouted at everyone to stop panicking and focus on the fight, but their attacks were barely scratching the creature. They couldn't believe how little damage they were doing. The tanks knew it was a losing battle. They told the others to fall back while they tried to hold the monster's attention. 5 minutes later, they had finally killed just one of the scorpions. They were completely exhausted. It finally hit them just how incredible Lin Mo-yu was for fighting these monsters all by himself. Miles away, Lin Mo-yu could tell the adventurers couldn't sit still. Just as the group caught their breath, someone shouted in panic. They weren't done yet. The second scorpion was closing in. Panic set in. They were too tired to fight anymore. They all knew they'd made a huge mistake and should have just listened to Lin Mo-yu from the start. Just as they lost all hope, something tore through the desert at an impossible speed, heading straight for the fight. A skeleton warrior, glowing with red energy, lunged forward. It brought its sword down on the scorpion with a powerful skill, Rage Strike. The scorpion was destroyed in a single hit. The adventurers were stunned. One of them finally understood just how overpowered Lin Mo-yu's skeletons were. A woman sighed in relief, thankful that he had left one behind to protect them. Suddenly, their system windows exploded with notifications. They were getting thousands of experience points over and over again. One of the adventurers couldn't believe it, exclaiming that it was just too much. The others realized what was happening. Lin Moyu must have already reached the boss. They talked about how difficult the Ant Queen was supposed to be, with her ability to heal herself. One of them finally asked if they were still foolish enough to underestimate him. Far away, Lin Moyu was already at the ant nest. He didn't waste any time. He simply activated his skill. Corpse explosion. A system notification popped up for everyone. LVL 28. Queen Ant was dead. The adventurers were speechless. One of them asked if it was really over that fast. Lin Moyu appeared before them again. He told them to get ready to move to the next castle, explaining that he wanted to finish quickly and reset the dungeon. The adventurers could only agree. As he walked away, the adventurers saw what he was heading towards. It wasn't just a few monsters. It was a whole army. They stared in awe, realizing that if he kept this up, he could probably reach level 30 in just a couple of weeks. To break through the castle's defenses, Lin Moyu unleashed one of his most powerful skills, Corpse Explosion. A massive blast tore through the enemy ranks, shaking the ground. The adventurers couldn't believe what they were seeing. They realized that if your attack power was high enough, you could just force your way through a siege. That's when they saw it in the distance, the Lion Tyrant. It was a world-level boss, and just feeling its presence made them want to retreat. The massive beast seemed to recognize him, but Lin Moyu wasn't there to talk. He simply told it he was in a rush. Watching from afar, one of the adventurers was stunned. He said that Lin Moyu made fighting a world boss look so easy, he almost felt like he could do it himself. His friend just laughed, telling him to go ahead and try not to get too scared. Just moments later, a system notification appeared. The VL31 Lion Tyrant was dead, and they'd all received 50,000 experience. The adventurer was so shocked, he thought it had to be a joke, but it was real. He had actually done it. One of the adventurers started crying with relief, shouting that they had finally completed the task. The adventurers started teleporting out, shouting their thanks. One guy was ecstatic, saying he'd been stuck on this task for 2 years and could finally move on. But not everyone was celebrating. Miles away, a man got a message that Lin Moyu was finally out of the dungeon. He immediately gave an order: follow him and figure out how he cleared it by himself. Back at the dungeon entrance, a huge crowd was waiting for him. A woman explained that they'd all been stuck on the same task for a long time. When they heard he was carrying people through, they all rushed over. The leader of the new group made sure everyone understood the rules. They all agreed they wouldn't take any items from the dungeon. With that settled, he led the massive party back into the desert. He was hoping to find more of the rare oasis fruit this time. And this time, he got lucky. He found the oasis fruits he needed to level up the rest of his skills. He figured he had a day and a half before the central selection started, giving him time for a few more runs. The new group watched in amazement as his skeletons tore through the monsters. One of them said that spending 5,000 points to get carried like this was completely worth it. Then, Lin Moyu unleashed another one of his skills. The adventurers could only watch, admitting that what he was doing was something they could never hope to accomplish on their own. The adventurers couldn't believe it was already over. They realized he'd cleared the whole thing in just 1 hour, and they suspected that wasn't even his limit. As they teleported out, they celebrated finally completing the task. One of them immediately planned to report back to his boss, calling Lin Moyu terrifyingly strong. Elsewhere, the man from the dungeon reported back to his boss. He was clearly angry about Lin Moyu's success. The boss listened carefully, breaking down Lin Moyu's abilities. He figured out that he relied on his skeleton army and exploding corpses for damage. He was confident he'd found a weakness. If they could stop him from summoning and deny him corpses, he'd be useless. With a plan in mind, he ordered his subordinate to find someone from another academy. Turns out, this was personal. He swore he'd make Lin Moyu pay for taking a valuable accessory from his academy and humiliating him. A moment later, a tall figure walked into the room. Meanwhile, at the Xiajing Academy dormitory, a girl named Xia Shui stood by the window, lost in thought. An instructor was reminding Xia Shui to save up her points. He explained that all the best things at the academy were expensive. She couldn't help but feel a little jealous of Lin Moyu, thinking he could probably buy anything he wanted with his 30,000 points. She remembered hearing that Lin Moyu had gotten to the academy a few days ago. A small smile appeared on her face as she wondered how he was doing, but then she figured he was probably